Hello, 2, 1. TikTok, online. YouTube, online. I napped today, guys. I napped. That's what I did. I did my laundry, came in, napped, got up, made some food, ate it, napped, went, got my laundry, took my dog for a walk, came home, napped. I did a lot of napping today. And you know what? I'm glad that I did. No one will ever be able to tell me that, John, you should have been productive today. You know what? No. I'm glad that I wasn't. I'm actually extra glad that all I did today was nap. And I feel like if you, people, that guy, good to see you, bud, if what you did today, or if what you do on a day off is nap, that's time well spent. We should all be napping. I think that that's what we should be doing instead of striking. We should all just nap. Just lie around, stay home, have a nap, stop paying rent, right? Just stop paying for things. Stop participating in this ridiculous system. One of the things that I think is really funny about what's going on in the world today, Loblaws is starting to feel the heat here in the province of Ontario. Loblaws says it has unfairly become the face of food inflation. The second richest man in Canada, Galen Weston Jr., literally born a billionaire because of his father, Galen Weston, who is like a monopolist of the food distribution system, is crying publicly, using his public media network, or private media network rather, in order to complain that how dare people think that we should not be able to jack the price of food. My absolute favorite thing that Loblaws does over this period of time is basically out themselves by saying, oh, do I have the article? They complain that, our profit margin is only 4%. That's their big complaint, right? They say publicly in front of everyone, well, our profit model, we're only making 4%. Once we pay for everything, once everything's paid for and all that kind of stuff, we're only taking 4%. Well, the average is 2%, right? So if the average is 2%, right, most people are making a profit margin of 2%, and reminding everybody, 4% of profit, exactly, that guy, it's called volume, right? 4%, so 4% of $400 billion is still a lot of money. And it's 4% that you got for doing no work whatsoever. Galen Weston Jr. doesn't work. He doesn't provide value. He doesn't do anything that's necessary or important. So it's basically just 4% that could have gone to workers, 4% that could have gone to people who are actually doing the labor or the effort, right? But instead, it's 4% that go to capitalists who do nothing of value whatsoever and are unimportant to the system, and probably should be removed from the system. We should nationalize these systems and say goodbye to people like this. But my favorite part about it is that these guys are just openly saying, yeah, we're charging you double. We're charging you double of what the rest of the industry is charging. That everybody else is making a profit margin of 2%. And we're making a profit margin of 4%. That sounds like double. That sounds like price gouging. And of course, they're getting extremely criticized because it had a price freeze on 1,500 no-name products that it is now lifted. So we all know where this is going. Turns out that if you give the power of food distribution to overt crazed psychopaths, they're gonna charge you more. That's what it is. And it's absolutely adorable that they're complaining about being quote unquote the face of food inflation. I think that's complete karma. I think they deserve it. They earned it. They've done a really good job of being unrepentant psychos. So I'm super happy that Galen Weston Jr. feels like he needs to go to Twitter and start arguing with people on Twitter and launching a whole PR campaign, which I'm sure was completely free, right? So these guys are completely willing to spend millions of dollars to do a PR campaign, but won't give their workers a penny extra, right? That's how it works. David, good to see you. Grinning, good to see you. Mason, good to see you. Compton, yeah, no one needs to go to Twitter. Yeah, thank you. I can't stand Twitter, dude. Like, I'm like so. I just hate the format. I hate everything about it. Anytime I go to Twitter, I'm just like, ugh. Oh, that guy! You did your first volunteer shift at the food bank today. How did it go, that guy? Did you have a fine time? I hope you did. It's a beautiful thing you're doing there, bud. And I'm glad to hear that there are people who are volunteering their time and going out and working at the working on behalf of the food bank system. That the hard reality about the food bank is that it shouldn't exist. Like and that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the food banks of Canada. That the food banks of Canada themselves have said on several occasions that they shouldn't exist as an organization. And they have endorsed a basic income style model for getting people food. And of course, the trouble with that, of course, is that if you give people a basic income, then you've got to deal with, overt psychos like Galen Weston who want to overcharge you for, cans of beans and things. Is Skrelly still in jail? I don't know who Skrelly is. But, like, I just feel like the solution to this is nationalization. Like, why are we tolerating these people? Why are we putting up with them at all? The idea that someone like Galen Weston Jr. should be involved in our food distribution system at all because he was born rich. He literally was born into the family that owned grocery stores. And the idea that we should take anything he says seriously or listen to him about anything whatsoever is like the most baby brain shit of life. Like, straight up basically just saying, well, that guy was born a prince, so of course he should be our king and make all our laws. That makes total sense. And yet here we are. Grinning says, I'm still stuck on Canada's offing the disabled through MAID and forcing organ donation on inmates. Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with these people? It's beyond the pale. Yeah, welcome to Canada, man. Welcome to Canada. This is what we do. This is how we roll, right? This is the thing that we are all about. And yet, for some reason, we're really struggling to put together what the UK now and France have already put together, which is that the solution is mass strikes. That UK here, I'm showing a video here on YouTube. The authorities expect that up to 500,000 Britons will take to the streets in the capital and demand higher wages amid a record rise in the cost of living. Like, this is what it is going to take. Like, we're not going to make any headway whatsoever by pretending like we can reform this system, by pretending like electoral politics will respond, by pretending that the political class is actually capable or rational or interested even in responding to the needs of the public. What it's going to take is the withdrawal of our labor and the shutting down and frankly inconveniencing of the very people who are responsible for the problem. Like, I'm very straightforward with this. Until there is encampments of people surrounding Doug Ford's home that he has to go through on the regular to get anything done, nothing will change. And that's going to be true of any leader at this stage in the game. That the system is so corrupted and so fractured and so incapable of responding rationally to the needs of the public that the only way we're actually going to see the needle move, even a tiny little bit, is through mass strike action, through mass protest, and through inconveniencing the people we elect to be decision makers who don't make decisions for us, but make decisions for the rich and the powerful. Any other idea is just like naive or intentionally designed to deflate the populace. Like, when the rich and the powerful and the political class say, get out there and vote, well, they're basically saying, don't do anything but funnel your energy into a dead system that doesn't work, right? And you've got well-meaning people who are like, make sure you write to your congressman, make sure you write, like, you can write to your congressman all you like, but he's going to take that and he's going to throw it in the bin, right? Like he doesn't care. And it's gotten even so bad that even just like day-long protests, like simple marches and things like this, they'll watch you all walk by and go, huh, isn't that interesting? And then do what their owners want. Like, that's what's happening, and that's what they're going to continue. That's how they're going to continue acting. They have literally no incentive whatsoever to act any other way. These people are detached psychopaths. They're not interested in you. They're interested in going to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island and hanging out with their rich friends. That's what they're interested in. And so the only way they'll actually even begin to consider maybe we should do something about this is if things get difficult for them. And the only way things are going to get difficult for them is if they have masses of people outside of their door. That's all that's left. That's all they've given us. That's the only option that remains for us. Because they're just completely detached from reality. They're not interested in what's happening. And more you find out as the days go by that the things that they do respond to are literally just like handouts that are given to them directly by the industries that own them, right? So you think about Justin Trudeau, we're going to put a carbon tax. Well, that was the fossil fuel industry's idea, right? A carbon tax. So we're going to tax you, the worker, right, in order to deal with this climate change issue. Oh, and by the way, we're going to bail out the fossil fuel industry every chance we get. But we really care about climate change. We're very serious about this, right? That guy says if you nationalize the food industry, you just seize all the grocery stores and food bank takes on a whole new meaning. Yeah, what a lovely notion, not restricting someone to 6 eggs and 3 pork chops per week. Grinning says Atlanta mayor says that Cop City will definitely happen despite the mass protests. I'm doubting the effectiveness of protests. That's not good because what roads remain? Yeah. Like really, like if even mass protests are not being responded to, if the political elite and the powerful are no longer responding to even massive strikes and protest, like the next step is full-scale revolution. It is to simply enter the halls of power and just stop pretending like the rich exist at all. Like literally, that's what's left. And like the like, do we need more evidence to see that we live in a terrorist nation? Like that we live in a nation that are run by just like absolute sycophants? When you've got obvious, like 500,000 people are on the streets in the UK. You've got 1 million people on the streets in Paris. Like, is the system capable of responding? Is it interested in responding? Is it going to do anything? Or are they just going to send out the police? Right? They're just going to send out the head crackers. Hey, Stats, how you doing, bud? Have you seen the scandal in Quebec City? A Muslim woman said that Quebec was Islamophobic, which it is a lot, and nationalists are crying. Yeah, I mean, I would argue that the West generally is Islamophobic in like a big scale way. Like the existence of Bill Maher. Like Bill Maher is like this big who's like overtly and obviously and massively an Islamophobe. Like and it like admits to it openly, right? Like, and yet he's still considered to be a serious commentator who we should pay any attention to whatsoever. He comes out and says like new rule, and we're all like, new rule, Muslims aren't people? Is that what you're going to say here, Bill? Is that what's going on? No, like I mean, like when it drove me absolutely crazy. Like one of the things that I think makes me feel like I want to do what I'm doing now is the idea that people like Sam Harris would be going around and be getting like on like major platforms and like being platformed on major places, and the guy is like cartoonishly racist. Like if you read Letter to a Christian Nation, some of the stuff that he has written about Muslims is like literally like the same as like the black caricatures with like the big lips and like the monkey look. Like it's that kind of level, and yet we're all because he stands in front of you and talks so calmly like this. You're not supposed to be like, oh, you're just like a fucking racist. like just an overt crazed lunatic person who is painting a depiction of Muslims that is beyond cartoonish, like just overwhelmingly childishly. Like if a 5-year-old wrote what he wrote, I would be like, bro, it is time to talk to you about what is going on in the world. But nope, it's a neurosurgeon, somebody who we should take very seriously about what's going on in the world. Like, and that it's done nothing but encourage me to like, oh well, if a hack loser like this can get any kind of traction, then probably somebody who's saying, yeah, Muslims are not like all celebrating that. Like if a suicide bomber goes and blows someone up, the mother doesn't like celebrate and like wave a flag saying hooray, he did it. Like they're human beings capable of feelings and emotions, right? Yeah, historical evidence says correct. I mean, something's got to give. Like something's and something is going to give. Like this capitalist system is going to break itself. And it looks very much like the capitalist response to the people is just going to be police. That's it. That the solution that's coming out of the solution that's coming out from our systems is just make sure we have a strong, robust police force to be able to beat people up that we throw into the streets. Like, that seems to be the solution from the capitalist death cult. And I don't think we're going to avoid it. You can take a look at what's going on in Atlanta to see that that's the case. Like, building this, like, I haven't even really looked into it, but it just sounds so fucking stupid. You're going to make a cop city? Like, what are you talking about? So you're going to have all your you're making a military base. Like, stop pretending like it isn't that. Like, a quote-unquote cop city. Yeah, you mean a military base. So you're going to make a military base where all your military personnel can live. And then they all go from their military base where they all live and are protected in their gates and with their guns and all this kind of stuff. And then they enforce their will on the nearby populace. Right? So it's like they're literally erecting an oppressive force that are gonna like live on compounds and shit. Like this is what you want, right? This is the world you want to live in. Okay, like fucking people are really fucking dumb if they think this is gonna work out. Yeah, I love that. Anytime anybody comes in here, Ligand to Z, you're absolutely right. Like I think that is my new response to the people who come in and are talking about like the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. I'm like, yeah, all of a sudden we really care about Muslims. Oh yeah, all of a sudden Muslims in Xinjiang, we really, really care about them. Don't care about them if they live in Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, right? Don't care about them if they, like, we can blow them up and murder them and call them monkeys basically and do what we want. They're subhumans wherever they are in the world. But if they live in China, then, oh, the Uyghurs, we really care. Yeah, right. Edward Allen, Sam Rose using academic posturing to hide his guiding ideology. Yeah, like Peterson and others. Well, and Sam Harris also did it became kind of popular. In my opinion, figures like Harris really rose to prominence because he was doing what the Christian left refuses and still refuses to do, which is confront the fascist Christian right. And so you can't really talk down to Harris and Hitchens and Dawkins and Dennett because they were doing what the Christian left should have been doing the entire time. But the Christian left are largely cowardly and essentially spineless capitalists who have essentially bowed their head to the capitalist system entirely. That they might say in private or even they might say in private that capitalism is a problem, but they'll never do anything about it. And they're certainly never going to say anything about Joel Osteen or Pat Robertson or any of these kind of guys, right? They're too cowardly. They're too gulled. They're just happy to live in their little congregations and serve the community by saying a speech every so often and then getting money for the church so they can round up kids, Like, that's basically what the Christian left is in America. And so that left this massive gap for this group of quote-unquote new atheists. And the new atheists were basically just doing what the Christian left should have been doing. But they were doing it from the position of like, hey, you know, science and reason matter, and there is such a thing as evidence that actually does matter, that we should actually pay attention to. And and of course, like, so outside of that, though, Harris then gets through based on that, and he's really not like the best one of those guys. Like, of those four guys, I think he's like on the bottom of that totem pole. Like, he's the least accredited, the least published, the least written. Like, he really is just there because he's another one. And he ends up getting his weird little anti-Muslim rhetoric and racist ideas into the public sphere. Because I think he connects with other figures. Like, he gets on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he gets into Bill Maher's stuff and all of this. And because he doesn't really have anything else to talk about, because he's not particularly well published or that intelligent, then he's the one who ends up talking about his Islamophobia more than the rest of them, right? Because if you get somebody like Dawkins on, well, Dawkins has a lot to say about a lot of other subjects. He's actually like fairly well published and well researched, and so he's not always going to be talking about his views on Islamophobia, which is like basically what Harris talks about. And same story with like Dennett, and same story with like Hitchens. Like, Hitchens is fairly well published and fairly well regarded. Anyway, I started analyzing all political moves from the position that the ruling class are sociopaths, and it makes so much sense. It's scary, yeah, but they are. Like, they are. Like, you kind of have to be. Like, you really gotta, if you are not actually like a medical psychopath, like medically we have discovered that you are medically a sociopath, then you certainly have to be like, you just have to concede and act that way, given the position that you have, right? Like, so I take a look at someone like Galen Weston Jr. I think Galen Weston Jr. is the perfect person to talk about this. Like, the guy's literally born into an empire. He might as well be a prince. Like, it might as well be the case. He's just born with $1 billion. He owns grocery chains across the way. And, like, he wants to do right by his family and his family name and his family legacy. And how does he do that? He keeps building daddy's empire. That's what he's doing, right? And he does so he doesn't give a fuck about anybody else. He cares about his family legacy, and he cares about himself and his daddy more than he cares about you, certainly. Right? And so that's just going to mean that he's going to act like a sociopath, even if he's like the nicest guy in the world. Because his motives are not to feed the people and make sure everybody's safe and all that kind of stuff. Right? His motive is to build a little empire. That's what he's doing. Grinning says, Cop City is supposed to be a world-class police training facility based on Israeli tactics. Well, we've seen... Yeah, so it's exactly what I just described. Right? Like, they're going to create like a little fortress where they're going to let the police retreat to should things go tits up for them. So they'll always have a fallback position, right? So there'll always be a fortress for them to actually have access to should the civilian population chase them out, which is something of an inevitability given how the police act. And then they're going to follow through on Israeli tactics. Oh, okay, so they're going to commit a genocide against the people that they're around, right? And they're going to oppress them. They're going to start shooting children in the street. Right? These are Israeli tactics. This is how the Israelis operate, right? Spread terror as much as possible. Make sure that the people around are terrified of you and completely oppressed. Like this, that's Israeli tactics. Sounds exactly what I just described. Islamophobia is a bit of a misnomer. Anti-Muslim is more accurate. People in Islamic countries should be afraid of Islamism, a totalitarian ideology, as Americans should fear Christian dominionism. Yeah, but to pretend like the entire history of Islam and that every Muslim that's ever existed is like completely on board with this, like it's brain dead, right? Urban Chaos Girl, good to see you. Hey friend, good to see you. Conton says, I have a hot take. Oh, here we go, Conton. I don't think Klansmen and Nazis are the epitome of evil. These guys are honest with you and will nakedly tell you what they think. And then isn't surprised that they get hate back. But a cop, a policeman, they do the work of the Klan and insist you love them and respect the badge. So cops are Nazis who gaslight you and terrorize and demand they be loved. How is that not just the epitome of what we measure as evil? I mean, I'm more or less of the opinion that like this job just shouldn't exist in the society. Like it's weird, and the more you think about it, the weirder it gets. Like there's a dude with a gun on his hip walking around, in quote unquote enforcing the law. Like it's just fucking weird. Harris is relevant. I mean, Harris thankfully is not really that relevant any longer. Dawkins is relevant. Dawkins exists in the literature. Yeah, no, but they all have problematic opinions about Muslims, like the new atheists across the board. But like Harris was the one that was really the cartoonish one. Like for Dawkins, you can only see like a couple of tweets here and there, right? But like Harris was like publishing books based on it. And Dennett, I don't think offered an opinion, frankly. Like, I think Dennett was more about religion generally. Like, he had a general sort of opinion. But I never saw Dennett, like, specifically go after Islamic groups. And, like, what Harris would do is he literally would, like, we would go overseas and blow Muslim nations up. And then he would critique their reaction to that. He had like a big thing with like how it's wrong that there are suicide bombers, and I'm like, shut up. Like you don't get to judge how people act when your country is destroying their nation. Like what a baby-brained position to take. And at the end of the day, I think that's why Harris has fallen out of favor, is that everybody's sort of recognized that he's kind of a baby brain. Like he's not a very intelligent person. And he's just kind of a scared little racist. And that's more or less why I think people have been like, oh, yeah, he's just a scared little racist. He made sense post 9/11 when everyone else was terrified. But then, it goes away and you kind of shake it off a little bit and you go, okay, we live in the world and we got to continue on. And Harris just never did. He's just a scared little racist. Matthias says, I think there would be way less crime and need for police if we had a system that actually cared about its people. The system breeds psychopathy and desperation. Yeah, absolutely. It's the people who are willing to be, like, I've said it over and over again on this channel, and I'll continue saying it, that when people like Peterson say it's the most competent thing, the people who are the most competent do the best. Okay, well, the most competent at what? The most competent at what? Right? Well, it's the most competent at being a grifter. That if you really want to succeed and do well and make a lot of money in this society, you better be a fucking amazing grifter, right? Doesn't matter what skill you have. This is why these people were saying, you better train and get a job. No, that's not how you actually succeed, right? Because even if you have the skill, you still need to be a grifter, right? You still got to be a salesman. You still got to sell yourself. You still got to... People still got to be sold on the idea that you know what you're doing, right? And so you've got to be a competent grifter. And those are the people who actually ascend in our society. That if you're at the top of the meritocracy, it's because you know how to grift really well. And there are countless examples of this. Basically, every politician is just a very effective grifter. Every church leader of any sort is a very effective grifter. Like Donald Trump became the president off of grifting. Like it's getting really plain and really obvious. You want to succeed in the financial sector, you better be a real good grifter, right? You want to succeed in the entertainment industry, you better be a really fucking good grifter. Even if you want to succeed in the trades, like you want to own a little business and all of that kind of stuff, well, you better be a goddamn amazing grifter, right? Like you're never going to make it anywhere. You're never going to convince anybody to work for you. You're never going to convince anybody to hire you unless you're a really fucking good grifter. That's what you need to be competent at in this society. And it's annoying as shit. It's annoying as shit. Danarchist says, Dawkins hasn't been relevant in scientific circles as of late. Richard Dawkins is well published, I will say though. Well, and I think the reason why he's faded a little bit is because a lot of his ideas, I think, have been looked over and peer reviewed, right? And I think a lot of the scientific community has been like, I don't think this is accurate. Like the selfish gene was a big one, right? Where Dawkins was making the argument that we actually are like genetically predisposed and to selfishness. And a lot of people have peer reviewed his stuff and been like, probably not though. Like it's probably not this way. So he's something of an outlier with that idea. And I think that's what makes, it makes for, it's a good way to sell books, right? And it's a convenient position for capitalists to really put forward that, oh yes, we're genetically predisposed to being selfish. So says this scientist, right? So that happens a lot where like that's Peterson to a T. Like it's the reason why everybody knows Jordan Peterson is because his ideology is extremely convenient to the psychopath class, right? Like even if he wasn't saying the stuff that he was saying for the benefit of the rich, like it's very convenient to be like, yeah, I'm at the top of this meritocracy because I'm super competent and I know what I'm doing. Like that's very convenient position, right? And like the idea that like, yeah, this is just normal. This is we're at the end of history, and this is a natural hierarchy that we all stand upon. I got here through hard work for sure, not by being born into a literal empire like Galen Weston Jr. Like but because we live in the society of grifters, right? So the grifters appeal to the wealthy, and then their ideology gets spread all throughout Christendom, and so everybody finds out who they are just because they're blasted about. And I think that more or less happened with the New Atheists as well, because their ideology and their idea is fairly convenient for the powerful. Like it's natural that we are selfish people and self-interested, right? Like if you could find a scientist that's saying that and providing evidence for that, yeah, I'll spend $1 million to make sure that he's heard by literally everybody. That like everybody knows this guy's name. Absolutely, I'm going to do that. And then the scientific community looks at his work and it's like peer reviews it, takes a look, and it's like, there are problems and we're not convinced and all of that kind of stuff. But that doesn't hit the mainstream. Nobody says that, right? Yeah. Oh, a fortress like the Bastille during the French Revolution. Yeah. I wonder where that need to dominate other people comes from. Well, I think it's David, I think that what it is people who feel powerless want to feel powerful. And a real quick way to feel powerful is to exert your authority or dominate another person, right? I think this is a common thing. I think that's just a common position of human nature. You can see that with like people who have weird, kooky little fetishes, right? The rich have weird, kooky little fetishes, right? And oftentimes, if a person is in a position of authority or power, like a CEO of a big corporation, these are the guys who want to be subs and be submissive, right? Because if you're a sub and if you're a submissive, then you are relinquishing your power, and your power is going away. Whereas if you have no power, it goes the other way, right? And I think that's pretty common. So it's because there's such a dramatic imbalance of power within the society, you have this sort of desire to dominate other people that exists. And I think it's pretty common amongst cops, frankly. I find this interesting, where I use Franco Blanchet to call for Alan Therin resignation for his racist comments on the floor of Parliament in 2020. I don't really know what you're talking about, dude. Sorry. I know Daniel Dennett is working on consciousness as of late. Like, how do we, or what is consciousness? If you're interested, in consciousness, I actually highly recommend taking a look at the CIA and what the CIA was researching about consciousness. That, like, forget about like the scientific community, forget about like Harvard or Oxford or Daniel Dennett or any of this kind of stuff. Like, find what the CIA has been doing and their research as far back as the 70s. Like, what the CIA has been saying about consciousness is very, very, very interesting stuff. And so if you're interested in human consciousness or what is consciousness or collective consciousness or any of these kinds of things, you should look into the CIA and find out what the CIA research has to say. Yeah. It's a huge training facility being built on untouched forest. It'll certainly have some fortifications. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole society is grifters nowadays, scamming people. You do a surprisingly good low-effort Jordan Peterson impression. Well, I don't know, you just try to sound like Kermit the Frog, and then just get a little exasperated, right? Like, that's all he's doing. The whole time, we gotta go out there and you gotta find your meaning and love, and I'm so worried about it. You know, you take a look at the difficult situation that young men find themselves in, and nobody's fighting for them, right? Nobody's fighting for them, and you gotta. It's amazing to see how people don't actually know about the dragon that lives in the sky of chaos and how they fight against the forces of order. Hit the like, you lazy commies. Actually, do hit the like button. I would appreciate that. For you on TikTok, hit the like button. That would be really wonderful if you could do that. Peter. How many Peters is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Peter 8. 8 Peters. Capitalism for the win. Yeah, okay, bud. That's cute. Like, that's cute, dude. Like... how to tell someone's not a grown-up. Pepe. Oh, okay, this should be good. Why shouldn't people be able to freely exchange goods and services? People should be able to freely exchange goods and services. Communists are not against markets. That's not really a communist position. That there have been societies that have had controlled markets before, but usually you'll find that those societies are in war, right? So, like, people will critique the Soviet Union, for example, and be like, oh, well, they really didn't have a good market system. It's like, yeah, they were rationing most of the time because they were being attacked by Nazis, right? And post-World War II, they went through a market reform in order to, open up their markets. But it's not really a communist position to say that there shouldn't be markets. Like, every society has had markets. Slave societies have markets. Tribal societies have markets, right? Market systems are not ubiquitous or exclusive to capitalism. Capitalism is not defined on the nature of the market. And in fact, if you take a look at the history of World War II, you'll find periods of rationing and periods of market control and periods of that within capitalist systems as well. Because that's not what defines capitalism. What defines capitalism is the relationship between the people who own and the people who don't. That's the nature of what makes capitalism capitalism. That there's a group of owners who own property and own the means of production, and there are a group of people who own nothing except their own labor, and so have to sell their labor to those people who own the means of production. And the communist says, well, why is it that this class of people who own the means of production exist in the first place? And just basically say they shouldn't. Like, that it just shouldn't. There shouldn't be a dynamic like this. There shouldn't be a class antagonism. There shouldn't be a class struggle whatsoever. What's stopping you from creating some means of production for yourself? Pepe, I gotta think to myself, like, that cannot be a serious question, right? Like, there are enormous capitalist forces, enormous monopolies, massive institutional powers that are specifically designed to prevent people from doing that. Like, it's just like, all right, we gotta purge the chat of the babies. No babies allowed. Sorry. This is where adults live, bud. Bye-bye. Go grow up a little bit, okay? Yeah, John, why don't you build your own car factory? Right? Yeah, this is basically kindergarten level feigned ignorance. Yeah, like this is a kind of mindset that made sense maybe 70, 80 years ago, right? Like my dad is able to build an auto mechanic industry, right? Like he was an auto mechanic and he owned an auto mechanic shop. What he would call himself a capitalist during this period of time, for sure. and he hired men and was very successful. And of course, all of it collapses because of NAFTA, right? So all of that work and all of those workers basically get laid off. My dad is forced to change his entire business model and all of this kind of stuff because he can't compete anymore. Because the political class has essentially said, oh, we're going to give massive, giant conglomerate corporations the power to offshore all of this labor into other markets. And it basically destroys what we would call the little guy. I saw this happen in real time, right? Yes, of course it's a capitalist problem. Who owns the government? Right? Who owns the government? Like, people who are anti-government are usually pretty clueless about this connection, right? You want to scapegoat the government, but you don't want to actually think or admit who does the government work for and who owns the government. And the government is owned by the wealthy. So people like Galen Weston, David Thompson, right? You can open up your Fortune 500 and take a look. These are the people who actually own the government. And the government responds to these people exclusively. It's not like the government isn't some strange, abstract, amalgamous force. Like, it's like a people. Is it the people with little hats? Bye-bye, Pepe. Bye-bye. No, it's not the Jews, Pepe. Bye-bye. Time to grow up, dude. Time to grow up. Don't need any little Nazis in here, bud. Go grow up a little bit, okay? Maybe go outside, live some experiences, right? Go talk to some Jews. Go talk to people, right? Grow up a little. I think it's important that you grow up. Like, Jesus Christ. Why is it always the same with these guys? Why is it always the same? That it's like they come in, they question my position, and then suddenly it's the Jews. Like, is it like, are we really getting to the point as a people where the people who are defending capitalists, like the only people left who are defending capitalism, are Nazis? Is that really where we're at? Because it seems like that's the case. It's like, I gotta believe that these guys are just like edgy 13-year-olds, right? I gotta believe that they're just like these little kids who are just like being Nazis because it makes their mom mad, right? That's all it's gotta be. Because it's just... Yeah, imagine thinking you can scapegoat all your problems on one group of people, like on one, especially like a group like the Jews. Like, what are you talking about? Like, they're just like a small ethnic group that exists in the society. Yeah, well, they'll go after trans people first, that guy. Like, that's happening in the United States in a very serious way, right? You've got both DeSantis and Donald Trump standing. And Donald Trump was more explicit in how he said it, but what DeSantis said was essentially the same thing. So whoever leads the Republican Party going into the next election is going to do so with, we should round up the doctors and the trans people as their platform. It's actually going to be part of the platform. Right? Like, it's absolutely terrifying what we're seeing in the United States. That's beyond a regression. Like, we are getting into straight up just like Nazi level shit. And to pretend like they're not going to do that, I think is pretty startling. Pretty startling. Man, yeah, being a right-winger is so easy, man. All you got to do is be like, it's the Jews. We need more cops. And they're just jealous. That's it. You're done. You don't need to think about anything else, right? Like, you just bow your head to the most powerful person in the room and just say, yeah, I'll just work real hard and then I'll be rewarded. Yeah, that's a serious thing that definitely happens. And it turns out that the person who's doing the rewarding is their dad. Like, Demand Better, how you doing, bud? John, just get your own means of production from the mop tree. Yeah, the means of production tree. Come on, dude. Everyone's just sitting idle and getting passive income from just owning a thing and collecting rent. Come on, man. Yeah, exactly. You just need to get your own means of production, bro. That's completely available for everyone. There certainly aren't gigantic systems that are designed to prevent people from doing exactly that. Kids, man. Kids are hilarious. Kids say the darndest things. 90% of new businesses fail. Making your own means of production isn't a way out of the system. Well, and now we're getting to a point in the system of vulture capitalism where they want you to fail. Like, they want to, like, the whole system is turning into, like, a money mart system where they want to give you a loan, right? They want to give you a loan and then make it so that you can never get out from underneath that loan. Like, that's what they want. That's the structure that they want. And so they're happy to give someone a loan to open up a restaurant that's based on, like, takeout potatoes or something. And incidentally, before you think I made that up, there was a place here in Toronto that tried to do exactly that. And the entire time that I like went there, I did their thing. It was bad and stupid. The idea was stupid. And the entire time I was like, how did anyone actually get talked in to giving a loan? And it's because, of course, they're going to give a loan to these people. These people are going to be buried under that loan for the rest of their life. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is to ensure that people are trapped in these debt systems. That's the whole concept. Like, and it's explicit in America, where you can't even bankrupt out of student loans, right? So the whole idea of trapping people in debt peonage is built into the system, right? So they don't care about building a successful business or a successful thing. These bankers don't give a shit. They want to give out loans and get people on the hook. That's the whole point. So they're not interested in building a successful business. They're interested in impoverishing people and making money off of their desperation. That's the whole point. Peasants have been literally forced into capitalism in England. Most of the world was violently assimilated into capitalism, yeah. Capitalism has been marketed to people more than any other ideology, for sure. No one is more heavily propagandized than Americans. Like, it's really, really obvious. Just and more and more, the more I talk to the people who come in and attempt to defend capitalism in this chat, like, it's really, really obvious that they just don't know anything. Like, that they're just heavily propagandized, and it's always the same talking points. It's always the same garbage. It's always just the same. And these people think that they're free thinkers. Like, that's the best part. They think they're the free thinkers that are walking in here regurgitating CIA talking points that they heard on, like, a YouTube video that had, like, 4 million views or something. And it's just, like, it's getting, like, really, really plain to see that Americans are extremely propaganda. Like, Americans are more propagandized than, like, North Korea, for sure. By a lot. And I actually don't think it's close. Like, I think that it's like America is here, and then the entire rest of the world is, like, down in its own tier, like, literally 100 steps down. Just, you can't be this. You can't be this dumb. Like, you can't be this disconnected and this stupid, because it's like, and it's getting really plain. It's getting really obvious that the people who are defending the system of capital are just, like, their brains are off. They're just reacting to what's going on around them. Like, they're in this small echelon, in this small group, who have actually been rewarded and actually do believe all of this kind of stuff, even though the vast majority of the public is like, no, it's total bullshit. And it's obviously bullshit. Ugh. Capitalist marketers and propagandists have lots of proprietary information on how to manipulate humans. Yeah, that's for sure. Like, I'll be very curious to see if we ever get another, like, CIA Church Commission. Like, I really am curious to see the shit that the CIA's been up to for the last 50 years, right? Like, the Church Commission happened in the 70s, right? And we haven't really had anything like it since. Like, when we investigated them on torture, right, because they were torturing people, we got, like, a small little slice of what they were up to. But we haven't done, like, a full audit of the CIA. And I bet you if we did, we would find out some really, really crazy shit. Like, really crazy shit. Like, the CIA is obviously a massive terrorist organization that's operating against the wishes of the entire populace in order to maintain its own power, right? That's the entire point of the CIA at this point. It's not interested in helping anybody. It's interested in making sure that it's running the show. And or at least playing its part it's interested in its own power. And if we actually did an audit, I think we would find out, like, think about the stuff we actually know. Like, I think the bleakest thing is the CIA death squads that were walking through Afghanistan. Just literally groups of men walking through this. And reconnection successful. Get talking about the CIA. Get talking about the CIA. Yeah, John, it sounds like you're arguing with NPCs. Yeah, I mean, like, there is that, isn't there? Let me know in the chat, by the way, if I'm back, by the way. Yeah. No, I'm back. Okay. Yeah. Hold on, Marie. Did you see Netflix is now not allowing you to have devices in more than one household? No sharing passwords, basically. I think that's the end of Netflix. Like, it's just a catastrophe for Netflix. Like, how Netflix thinks it's going to look is, oh, I can't use my buddy's password, so I'll get my own account now. What it's actually going to look like is, oh, I can't use my buddy's password? Oh, I guess Netflix is over. I'll just pirate what I want. Like, that's it. Like, that's what's going to happen. And, like, it's not going to... Or you'll get together with your buddy and be like, oh, we can't do that anymore. Let's go to Amazon. Right? It's going to be a catastrophe for them. It's a terrible idea. And it's not going to work the way they think it does. It's going to completely blow up in their faces. And it's just more evidence to show you that these people are fucking stupid. These people are very, very stupid. And the capitalist system is a very stupid system that breeds stupidity. Right? It just kills everything around it. Like, it's been really sad watching, like, video game companies who I used to really like basically just turn into casinos, and, like, their games basically just become casino operations, essentially. It's really sad to watch capitalism destroy really, really passionate and beautiful artists and artistic communities this way. But that's what it does, and it can't help itself. It doesn't seem to be any capability for the capitalists to be anything other than just this scummy, dingy, shithole idiots, basically. John, it sounds like you're arguing with NPCs. Yeah, dude. I think that if you're like a 13-year-old, you are kind of an NPC. Like, you are just too angry and too full of rage, and you're just making decisions based on how do I piss off the adults. That's all. And so we don't need to engage them, right? And it's just getting really obvious that when you're talking to a teenager, it's getting pretty clear. Because they don't really know anything. All they've got are the dumb little talking points that their gamer buddies talk to them about, which is all just the CIA shit. And so and they're completely disinterested in knowing anything. And so, you just say bye. And it's pretty obvious when they've got names like Peter, and like Pepe, right? Like, it's pretty obvious. Grinning says, at Repropaganda, as a fairly new leftist, I could say there is a huge learning curve for anybody wanting to explore leftist tendencies. Yeah, just getting a good result on Google is almost impossible. Yeah, I think that one of the big things that has really blown up... Olaf, you can ask me a question, bud. I assume this is going to be done in good faith. Yeah, Ligand to Z picking up on the Nordic name, but we'll assume good faith. To me, what we're really paying for is our purging of actual discourse, right? That we're not really interested in knowledge. Like, I've said this before, the trifecta of the downfall of Western civilization is the worship of money, the worship of the self, and the worship of ignorance. And this worship of ignorance is really rife, or really obvious, because we've purged from the discourse any opposing view. That there's no such thing as a contrarian. You're not allowed to be a contrarian. You're not allowed to actually stand up and be like, hey, what about nationalization? How about we actually nationalize this? And why are we allowing this to even be privately run at all? If you stand up and say that, then, oh, you're a commie and you've done this kind of thing, and you just get chased out of the discourse entirely, right? You're just not permitted to be in the discourse if that's your opinion, even though we should absolutely be nationalizing some of this stuff. Like, after the 2008 financial collapse, we should have nationalized those banks. If they're too big to fail, then they shouldn't be privately run. Simple as that. and the idea that we bailed them out, like, yeah, we're a fascist country. Like, it's really obvious. We're a fascist country, very straightforwardly. We're basically rewarding the people who destroyed the economy with enormous, massive bailouts, saying to one of them, oh, you got to retire and go live in a resort somewhere. We'll call that justice. It's absolutely brutal. Yes, Netflix is going to fuck up Sandman now. I think that's probably right. CIA is the working arm of Wall Street, according to Aaron Good. I think that's a pretty accurate explanation, right? Like that Wall Street wants the CIA to, like, it's to the benefit of Wall Street to have goons, right? And that's basically how the CIA operates. Yeah, Netflix wonders why it's losing subscribers. Yeah, it's not even close. I had to stop watching American mainstream and legacy news. The total framing control is obvious and awful. Yeah, once you stop watching it, like once you get away from it for a little bit of time and then you go back and look at it, it's really, 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 really fucking obvious. Like Tucker Carlson is the perfect example. Like the whole Eminem thing, like it's so obviously just baiting. It's so obviously like we need to find some way to collectively get all the homophobes and racists into a room together and be able to talk about how much we hate people of color and people of a certain sexual orientation. But we can't just say it, right? If we say it, people will be, like, the quote-unquote normies will, like, glom on, right? And they'll figure it out. So we have to have this, like, weird little code, and we have to have this weird little thing. And the Eminem thing is perfect for this. Right? Because it allows them to openly talk about their racism and homophobia in very clear-cut ways. But because it's about like a chocolate M&M, it sounds silly. And I mean, racism and homophobia are silly, but that's basically what they're doing. And once you understand this, like once you understand that Tucker Carlson is talking directly to a white supremacist person, that's who he's talking to. And once you understand that, you can see it very clearly. It's very obvious. Like there are things where you're like, why is Tucker even talking about this? Seems really weird. He's talking about it because he's getting because the people who are in the know, right? Like fascists and Nazis are really aware that they talk in code to one another, right? They know that they do this, and like this is what the entire concept of dog whistling is, and so. But once you get away from it but if you're in the midst of it, like if you're just caught up in it, right, you can be like kind of a centrist or maybe even a liberal mindset, like and still think like, oh, Tucker, oh, so sure he talks about like M&Ms, I guess, like it's kind of weird, but some of the stuff he says is right, because he'll say something that is true just to set you up for something that is outrageously false, and this is true across the board for all of these guys, right? Olaf asking the you know what, Olaf, man, you're being real polite, so I gotta assume that this is in good faith. Are there any countries who in the long run actually benefited from communism? Speaking as a friendly capitalist who respects your opinion very much. Look at you, Olaf. Look at you. You're being very respectful. I feel you're bowing your head a little bit. That's very kind of you. You don't need to look any farther than China. That China has been run by the Chinese Communist Party since Mao, right? Since like the 40s and 50s. And the long-term benefits of the rule of the communists over that period of time has obviously been a benefit to China. And it's been so dramatically beneficial that the people, that capitalists try to take credit for it. Like that's how beneficial it's been. And the capitalists are terrified of China over this. Like they're terrified that the communists and the socialists within China are effectively running a country that is actually going to overtake the United States if it hasn't already, and to me that's like the big glowing example. You can see other examples, like the Soviet Union was able to industrialize their country from like an agrarian peasant society, literally ruled by kings, in a single generation, capable of defeating the Nazis. First people into space, So I would argue that the Soviet Union was a pretty big benefit to its own people. Places like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, right? They're able to withstand the Vietnam War, or withstand carpet bombing on this massive scale, and then build back very swiftly and have like a stable society. It doesn't fall to vulture capitalism or any of that kind of stuff. Or something like Cuba, like a place like Cuba. Like, if it wasn't for the sanction regime that's strangling the life out of Cuba, Cuba would be a very rich nation. Like, it would be very, very, people would look at it as like a glittering gemstone. And the successes there is that while the populace across the board are living in a kind of what we would consider a state of poverty, they're all in it together. That there is nobody living in the streets. There are nobody who have been abandoned. That they are all living in this kind of a bandwidth that should improve should we actually release the sanctions. Or another great place to look at, and one of the most heartbreaking stories of the modern era is Libya. The story of Libya is that Libya is basically run by a king. Gaddafi, who is in the military, gathers military people together and says, this is dumb, we should not be running the country this way. And they perform a bloodless coup, right? Basically overthrow the monarchy, and everybody in the country is more or less like cool about it. And then Gaddafi goes and sets about building the strongest economy on the continent, on the African continent, the strongest economy on the African continent, eliminates homelessness, increases literacy rates. Like, socialists and communists are well known and well regarded and well renowned for increasing literacy rates and eliminating homelessness. It's one of the major endeavors that communists and socialists embark on. And and it was so threatening to NATO and the United States empire that they blew it up. Like, literally, just blew it to pieces. You can go see Putin's speeches to see to see the general opinion across the board about what that was outside of the Western world. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things that I think has happened in my lifetime. Like, the destruction of Libya is just disgraceful, frankly. And people who are defending the system of capital, like, they don't really understand that I regard them the same way that I would regard Nazis. And it is because of things like Libya. The problem for most people here in Denmark is the fact that many people believe that communism always results in poverty and mass murders, which I don't know what to think of. Yeah, that's the propaganda, right? Like, if I was a Nazi, right, if I was an American capitalist, I would be very incentivized to try to convince people that my primary antagonist, people who want egalitarian systems, who actually want to eliminate homelessness, increase literacy, improve the lives of people, remove exploitive systems, right? I would try to convince everybody that, oh yeah, that results in poverty and desperation and mass murder and death and all these kinds of things. I would work overtime on that. And they do. And they do. The CIA exists to do this. That's what the CIA was created for. When the Americans go overseas and bomb Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia and massacre and murder people on an enormous scale, they do so openly stating they're doing it to stop the spread of communism. So, like, we got to stop pretending like the Western world is some like shining jewel of freedom and democracy. Like, these people are Nazis. Like, they're not, like, George W. Bush is essentially the same as Adolf Hitler as far as I'm concerned. I don't really see, like, one's got folksy charm, I guess. One spoke like this and was saying things like, we got to make sure that we spread liberty and democracy throughout the rest of the world. And we're going to make sure that overseas, we're going to make sure that America's values are protected. Right? While the other guy was like, then we're going to go overseas and make sure that German values are protected. We're going to spread liberty and democracy. Right? But the words are the same, and the ethos is the same, and the ideas are the same. Right? Like, the idea that we should be paying any attention to what the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, right? The idea that we should actually take what they say at face value take their media apparatus at face value and just obliquely believe them 100% is dumb. Like, just I don't know how else to say it. It's just a praising of the stupidest way to think possible. Olaf, the positive thing we have here in Denmark is the fact that we pay the highest taxes in the world, which provide free health care, and the government pays us to go to college monthly. Yeah, I mean, we here in the West tend to look at the Nordic model and say, like, oh, the Nords, they figured it out. We should have that kind of socialism, right? But the reality is that the reason why you have these things is because of the threat of communism. Because when the Soviet Union was spreading throughout Eastern Europe, right, it was a legitimate threat to the power of the capitalists, right? And especially when Lenin was around and you had this Trotsky guy around. Trotsky was very big on this idea of like spreading a permanent revolution throughout the entire world, right? He was really big on that. And so that was really scary for the capitalists to have this Soviet communist project that was gaining steam and gaining power, that and people in their own country who were being funded by this enormous superpower saying, yeah, we could just get rid of these capitalists. We could just be rid of them by... And so what did the capitalists do in response? Oh, you don't need to be rid of us. We're important. You know what we'll do? We'll give you free healthcare. How about that? Yeah, we'll give you free healthcare, and we'll make sure that your college is free. Yeah, we'll make sure your college is free. Isn't capitalism great? Capitalism is great. You don't need to overthrow us. Ha 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 ha! You don't need to overthrow us. We're your buddies. Ha 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 ha! Like, that's what happened. And now that the Soviet Union has collapsed, you'll notice that all of the like benefits and all of the things like have stopped. And in many places, they've regressed, right? And they'll regress in your country too. Like, don't fool yourself. They'll regress in your country too. And, because the capitalists won't be able to help themselves. Like, very, very straightforwardly. The capitalists will look at your system of free healthcare and say, but that could be money for me. And they'll bribe a politician in order to make that happen. Like, don't fool yourself. Like, that's for sure going to happen. Yeah, fun fact, the Communist Party received 25% of the votes in Denmark in the first election after World War II. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Olaf. Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That if you're a capitalist, that's terrifying. That's an existential threat for a capitalist. Like, I'll use that term, okay? Existential threat. Good to see you, by the way, Sigma. If something is an existential threat to a nation or an organization or to a group, they will fight to the death, to the final man, in order to ensure that that they are safe or protected. And if you're a capitalist living in a country and suddenly communists are getting 25% of the vote, you got to massacre those communists. Like, you got to vote for a Hitler type. You got to get him in there. You got to do a pogrom. You got to. Like, if you're capitalist, that's what you do. Like, that's what you do. And so this so the reason why Denmark has all of the benefits it has is because of this extreme threat to their existence. You got to keep people on side. You got to massacre communists, round them up for sure, purge them, absolutely. Simultaneously, you got to bribe people, right? Give away everything except the means of production. You saw this in America as well, right? The New Deal didn't come in because the capitalists were like, boy howdy, we love people and we need to make sure that America is a great country. They had communists outside of their door calling for a revolution. And they were like, okay, we got to concede. We got to give away stuff. We got to make sure, like, we got to invest people back into this system. And we're going to, and the mistake that the communists and the socialists in America made in the New Deal era was that they allowed the capitalists to maintain the means of production. And so what have they done? They've clawed the New Deal back, right? They're regressing the society again. We're going into another depression. The solution is cops and war, right? And so the next time we surround the halls of power and threaten a revolution, we should follow through and be rid of these capitalists, because they are worthless, pathetic parasites who are a negative drain on our society in big, massive, important ways. My own brother is slowly turning to Marxism, as most people do when they constantly see capitalism from its worst side. Well, and ultimately, like, I don't know, dude. Like, you read the Communist Manifesto and you're just like, oh, like, there's a reason why capitalists can't seriously engage with the Communist Manifesto. Because once you actually read, like, once you understand the dynamic of the bourgeoisie or the proletariat, right, the owners and the owned, your position is essentially either this dynamic should be at least reformed, right, or it's good. So you either end up being like a Nazi, basically, or you understand that this needs to be changed somehow. And in my view, the only real legitimate conversation that we should actually be having is how do we change it? That the people who are walking around saying that this system is fine, you just need to buck up and all that kind of stuff, should be roundly ridiculed and ignored, right? That and the idea that we should pay any attention whatsoever to anybody who is saying that this system is fine as it is, that you're the problem, the idea that those people are rich and get listened to at all, tells you that we're a very dumb people. Like, we're very, very illiterate people and proud of our illiteracy. Like, we're proud of how stupid we are. Because people like Ben Shapiro have a platform that gets taken seriously at all. People like Jordan Peterson get listened to in politics at all. Like, this idea that the system that's abandoning millions of people into the streets and is causing massive poverty and making sure that nobody can actually survive a crisis. Like, 60% of Americans, if they had a crisis that cost them $1,000, it would ruin them. Like, do you consider capitalists as bad as Nazis? I don't really see a difference. Honestly, I think that there is a technical difference, but like, you go ask the people of Iraq, go ask the Palestinians, go ask the Afghanistans, go ask the Libyans, go ask the Venezuelans, go ask the Chileans, go ask the Cubans, right? Go ask the Russians. Like, who do they think is worse? Do you think it really matters? Like, when the bombs are dropping on your country and it's an American flag instead of a swastika, do you think people go, oh, at least it's not a swastika? Like, go ask the people of Guantanamo Bay, right? If they think that capitalists are better than Nazis. Like, as long as you just ignore the many victims, right? Go ask the Bengalis during the Bengali famine. Go ask the Irish during the Irish potato famine, right? As long as you just ignore the enormous violence that has been spread throughout the world, you can make whatever claim you like. But if you don't, it gets pretty difficult to see the difference. It gets pretty difficult to see the difference. Peter Germantse. Oh, hold on. Let's go to the beginning of you, Peter. You don't seem to be spitting shit. You seem to be trying to engage in a beautiful way. Trying to figure it out. Oops. Oh, no, I did it. Okay. Why is it that the Jews are Jews? Yeah, get out of here, bud. How would communism solve the issue of the rich and powerful controlling the government? Well, I mean, the idea that communism has is that you create what's called the dictatorship of the proletariat, right? You create a system that does not respond to money. You create a system that responds to people exclusively. And, like, you take a look at China, for example, and China doesn't, it views, like, what we consider to be lobbying, right? It just says that's corruption. And the rest of the world calls it corruption as well. We're just so used to corruption being part of our system that we can't really imagine a system without it. When the truth is that the system's corrupt. Like, it's corrupted to the core. So just eliminate the money, get the money out of the situation, right? Have people actually respond to the people, have it actually respond to your electorate, and suddenly you'll see really interesting and good things happen for the people who elect people who respond to their people. That, like, the whole theory of democracy that we all heard when we were growing up, that's completely false here in America, is that you vote a guy in to do what you say, and if he doesn't do what you say, then you get rid of him. And that's a cute little idea, but as soon as you have massive conglomerate corporations with hundreds of billions of dollars in their pockets, yeah, that conversation changes a little bit. And especially when you pass legislation to allow them to give infinite donations to politicians. Like, your system is utterly corrupted to the earth and to the ground, in obvious ways. And it's amazing to see Americans like they seem incapable of understanding that that's not normal. Like, they're walking around being like, this is the greatest system ever, when it's literally like a corrupted oligarchy. Like, that's what it is. That the democracy exists as a theatrical endeavor exclusively. And it's just like billionaires basically choosing how to divide the spoils at this point. I'm not saying a good person or one fights to make things better. I'm asking how changing the form of government would stop corruption abusing the population. I mean, the only way that you can stop corruption abusing the population is to decide to do that. And the only way that you can do that is to make sure that capital doesn't intersect with the halls of power, right? Like, that's what you do. You basically just say, oh, donations are bribes. That and you just enforce this idea that, oh, you got a donation from a capitalist. That is a bribe. We are purging you. And that's how you build the system. And if you don't build it that way, if you go, no, that's not a bribe, that's a campaign contribution. That's what that is. That's a campaign contribution. Right? And you pretend like that's legitimate, then you can believe what you like, essentially. Also, the U.S. needs to do it if other Latin and South American countries see the success in Cuba. Yeah, they'll all go communist. Yeah, these are just the facts. I mean, that's not even like a communist theory. That's not the communists saying that. That's literally the Americans saying that. Like, when the Americans say we need to staunch the spread of communism, like, they're literally just confessing that this is going to spread. Well, why is it going to spread? Well, because it works and it's effective, right? Like, why else would it spread? Like, if it failed, if Vietnam tried it and it didn't work and it sucked and everybody thought it was stupid, then it wouldn't spread. But it does work and it is effective. That's why it spreads. And the American rhetoric is so fucking stupid that they're like, communism doesn't work, it collapses every time it's tried. That's why we need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to bomb a thing that'll collapse on its own. American logic. It's so dumb. Like, it's so dumb. If it's going to collapse, let it. Right? Just let it. Just let it collapse. Like, what's the problem here? Why do you got to pretend like it's something else? Edward Allen, there are two diametrically opposed versions of history, one promoted and taught in schools, and one you must look for. Then compare to see which actually makes sense. Well, and oftentimes oftentimes the stuff that you're taught in school is not false. It's not an overt falsification of what happened. It's just, there's a lot of omission. There's just a lot of omission, right? Like, which is essentially where the capitalists are now. It's just lies of omission. Ooh, you guys are moving too fast. I can't keep up with you. It's like the Ukraine war is a case in point. Like, most of what's going on in the Ukraine war are lies of omission. That just omit the 2014 coup, omit the Donbass war, and you can pretend like Putin is a madman just coming across the border because he's pro-imperialist, even though he's never said so and there's no evidence of it, right? Like, just ignore the fact that NATO funded Nazi organizations to coup the government, install their own guy, and then start a war in the Donbass region against ethnic Russians with the help of a Nazi battalion that they integrated into their own military. And you can basically just believe what you like, right? Like, you can basically just say, like, Putin crossed that line, and that line is the only thing that matters. He went over that line, and that's the only thing that matters. Yeah, he broke the don't cross the line rule. Like, forget about what's actually going on, or the facts or the evidence, or any of the information that actually exists. No, what matters is that Putin went over a little piece of line that exists. Like, that doesn't even exist, actually. So most of these lies are just lies of omission. I see how you can see the common themes, in fact, that both ideologies are anti-communism ideologies. I do, however, believe there's a huge difference in the mass murdering part. I don't. Like, I straight up don't, dude. Like the Germans were very intense. There was an intense, like, period of time. Like, the only real difference that I see is that Adolf Hitler was killing white people. That's it. Like, if those people were brown people, we wouldn't give a fuck. We certainly don't give a fuck when we're killing brown people across the Middle East, Africa, South America, Southeast Asia. We certainly don't give a fuck. Like, at all. Like, zero fucks. We don't care. Right? But if white people die, then suddenly it's a big, massive problem. Right? Like, and I'm not trying to put that on you. Like, I'm not trying to accuse you of anything. But it does seem to me like that is the divide. That when people think of Adolf Hitler, they think of, like, this great monster that's horrible. It did all this terrible stuff. And oh my God, who is a capitalist, by the way? Like, who is a capitalist, by the way? Like, fascism is a form of capitalism. Adolf Hitler is a capitalist, right? But we consider him to be this monstrous figure because he was doing it to white people. Well, if the people who were being bombed throughout the Middle East and Africa and Southeast Asia and Latin America were white, then it would be no question. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation at all. We would definitely be like, yeah, like George W. Bush and Clinton and Obama and Trump and Carter and Nixon and all of these guys. Like, they're the fucking same. It's the same fucking shit. They just have the awareness not to also bomb white people until very recently. Castro said, in the end, it is always more about bad systems than bad individuals. Many are born into privilege and wash off the blood with the charity NGO complex, for sure. Yet the social democracies of NATO bomb the shit out of Libya. Social democracies murder plenty of people, yeah? Peter says, is that not just idealism? Who does Xi Jinping listen to? Xi Jinping, if you want to know more about this, just type into YouTube, or not YouTube, sorry, Google, or whatever search app you would prefer, the National People's Congress. People's Congress. National People's Congress. And just read the Wikipedia article. It's all right there for you. This is the structure of the Chinese government, the National People's Congress. The way it works is that China is divided into a series. It's going to sound very similar to stuff you've heard elsewhere. China is divided into districts. People elect a person to go into office. You can see here, right, that this is the seats of the National People's Congress. The red represents the Chinese Communist Party. And you can see there are other parties within China here, right? The Juisan Society, the Chinese Association for Promoting Democracy, the Chinese Democratic League, right? So there are many parties within China. The idea that China is a dictatorship is a childish one. You can see it here. This big blob of white is independents. So the largest group is actually non-affiliated independents. And then the largest group, of course, the Chinese Communist Party. This organization then elects an executive body, right? Because it's important to have an agile group that's actually small and can actually make quick decisions. And that body responds to the larger body. And this body is responsible for electing its leaders. And Xi Jinping and his faction are the people who are currently in charge. And they respond to this body, and this body responds to this body, and this body responds ultimately to the electorate. And very, very recently, Xi Jinping was elected on a platform of anti-corruption. So you think about like the 2008 financial collapse, really clear example of what I'm talking about. So 2008 financial collapse happens here in America. Well, what was the outcome of that? Well, we took hundreds of billions of dollars and gave it to the people responsible. We sent like one guy to a resort somewhere, Bernie Madoff, and pretended like that was justice. And then basically said, okay, good job, carry on. Right? That's what happened. So they got rewarded for collapsing the economy. In China, a similar collapse happened, and the capitalists had their assets stripped, and some of them were executed. You see the difference? Are you seeing the difference? Now, you can decide whether or not the death penalty is good or bad if you like, but to me, that's a conversation on the side. What certainly is not for debate is that China didn't reward them for doing it. They absolutely punished them for doing it. And you want to talk about corruption? There's the clearest possible example that I can give you of what it means to have a country that isn't whose leadership and whose body public and body politic is not corrupt by capital. That the Chinese government and the governmental structure of China is structured in such a way to purposefully purge these elements and to constantly be getting these elements out of it. Like here's another great example. So once you're elected to the National People's Congress, you don't just become the governor of the district, right? So in America, if you're elected the governor of Florida, then you're the governor of Florida and you get to write the laws for Florida. So if you win a popularity contest, you literally get to be like, yeah, I'm going to write a law saying everybody should give me $1. Like, dumb fucking shit, right? In China, if you get elected to the National People's Congress, it's like being elected to a school. And they take you and they put you in a village. And they say, okay, you're going to be the governor, the leader of this village for a little while. And then we're going to talk to the people of the village and see what they had to say about your governance and what their opinion of you is. And if you're any good, then we're going to move you into the next level and you'll get a town, a city, right? This is the path that Xi Jinping took. That he took this exact path to power. And then you get control of a larger, like a state or a province. And then, if you're lucky, the whole fucking country, right? Or unlucky, I suppose, depends on your perspective. But the Chinese look at this idea of, oh, you want a popularity contest? Oh, cool. So you get to write the laws of the land now. They look at that with disdain. They think that that's a stupid idea. And frankly, it is a stupid idea. It's a stupid idea that any asshole with enough money can just walk in, grift a people, win a popularity contest, and then write laws. Like, it's a dumb idea. And if you want to see something that I think is a bit more reasonable, I think the National People's Congress is a good place to start. Watson, good to see you. We got a fellow by the way of Jake in here. From the Midwest here, there's no industry, so I work out of state. How do I break through in a communist economy? I feel like I'd have to do things that make sense in Midwest. I don't know if I understand you're not in a communist economy, Jake. Like, are you asking like a theoretical? I don't really understand your question, dude. Lots of new people coming in. And you know what, guys? I'm going to say it across the board here. So far, for the most part, the guys that I'm talking to, look at you, even Peter saying thanks for replying to me. Look at it. How polite. I really appreciate that, guys. We had a couple of teenagers in here, but I really value it when new people come in and they're polite and they're just asking questions and they're doing that kind of thing. Oh, maybe this is why, Jake, because I missed your first comment. I love the idea of communism. My only fear is my work life. I'm a first-gen filmmaker, and I had zero connections in the gatekeeper industry, worked my ass off to break through and make a career. Well, yeah, I don't know that I can comment on that too much, Jake, because I think film is such a specific sort of a thing. I do know that the whole point of the idea of communism is that, like, that what occurs within an industry is owned by the workers themselves. That it's less about trying to appeal to a capitalist in order to convince them to give you the money and the capital you need to actually make something work, and more about, like, in France, I think might be a good idea. Like, France is a social democracy for sure, but I've talked to a lot of French artists who, like, and the arts are extremely well funded in France. France has an extremely long lineage and extremely long history of improving their society through the arts, and they really value it, right? And you could see that just in the architecture of their cities. Like we tend to think of Paris as just like the Eiffel Tower, but if you actually look at Paris itself, it's a gorgeous city. And they didn't do it because they were like, and then it'll increase tourism, it'll make us a lot of money. They did it because they were like, we want our shit to look nice. Right? We want to live in a place that's actually nice and good, right? And like the theater there is completely state funded. So in France, if you want to become an actor, if you want to become part of that system, the theatrical system that exists there, well, then you audition and you apply for the for the theater companies that exist and that are subsidized by the state. And the French's opinion is more or less that, look, if you want these things, if you want a robust theatrical tradition, if you want theaters, then they need to get paid, and the best way to do it is just have them paid by the state. And so if you want to, quote unquote, break through, well, now you actually have to be good at what you do. Right? Now you actually have to be trained, and you actually have to go to the academy, and you actually have to know what you're talking about. Right? Like this idea that seems to exist within the American ethos of, like, this gunslinging idea of, like, I'll just be the best and that'll raise me through the meritocracy. Like, it's just not how it works. It's seriously not how anything works. That you have to get connected to some kind of institution, and some kind of institution needs to bring you up through the ranks. Right? It's just that in America, we don't like to talk about it, but the institutions that exist are just fucking psychopaths with billions of dollars. Right? So you just need to convince the psychopath with $1 billion that what you're doing is worthwhile. Well, and if you're an artist of any merit whatsoever, with any salt in your shoes at all, then what you're interested in doing is producing art that is critical of the state or critical of the society. But you think the capitalists are, like, raring at the gun to fund a lot of artists that are going to be critical of capitalism? Quite the opposite. Anyway, Anthony, free the markets, stop taxation of income of all sorts, get rid of all the bureaucracy, and end the Federal Reserve, and fiat currency, and qualified immunity. We should have personal autonomy. We got a libertarian. Yeah, nice idea, not going to work for you, bud. Not going to work for you, and it's not going to work for one real simple reason. Good to see you, by the way, Watson. Market systems, like personal autonomy systems, collapse into monopoly. That's the long and short of it. Like, and once it collapses into monopoly, you no longer have your personal autonomy. And it's always going to do that. It's never not going to do that. And the only way that you can stop it from doing that is by having institutional authority, prevent it from happening. And so there's your whole libertarian idea out the window. Like, there's your whole concept just gone, flushed down the toilet right away. What we should be doing is looking at societies and looking at cultures and looking at places that are being successful. And right now, I really got to say it, and I got to say it straightforwardly, and I don't mean to insult anybody by saying this. If you are not looking at what China is doing right now seriously, and not as a critic, but as a student, then you're a fucking idiot. And it's as straightforward as that. It's as straightforward as that. Like, these guys have blown up so quickly, are building so fast, and are literally eradicating poverty from their society so efficiently and effectively that to pretend like we can critique them while they do these things is not much different than like looking at Magnus Carlsen and being like, oh, he's just making bad moves. Like it's not much different than that. Like we've got to be learning from nations that are succeeding. And if you are going to look at me and try to pretend like China is not succeeding, then I don't need to take you seriously as a person. Just flatly, I just don't need to take you seriously. Like, they're obviously succeeding. What are we talking about here? Got a lot of new people in the chat. And they're being nice. So, I'm surprised. I gotta tell you, I'm not used to so many new people, and all of them are being nice to each other. Like, some pushback, some disagreement. Oh, like I said, that's fine. I don't care about any of that. But how does a farm boy not get stuck working on the farm in a communist economy? Makes sense for the greater good, right? No, I think that's an interesting question, Jake. And it seems to me that the solution is that you just create job fairs, right? You create job fairs and you create, like, if you don't want to be on the farm anymore, you don't need to be on the farm anymore. Like, the state needs a certain amount of farmers, obviously. And I've always thought that, and it seems to me like most communists think that one of the big solutions is like, oh, you just, like, a certain amount of time has to be utilized by the state. And so if let's say you've got 10 years, right? And so within that 10-year period of time, 2 of those years, the state is basically going to say, look, we need people here. It's simple as that. We just need people here. Well, so, and then the rest of the 8 years, you go do whatever job fair or whatever kind of thing you are driven to pursue and you're driven to do. There's a great book called The Dispossessed by Ursula Le Guin, where she talks about this. And this idea that people just kind of get stuck in a place and that's the end of it, I don't see why any society would want that. Like, what a great way to ensure you're as mediocre as you could possibly be, right? Like, what a great way to ensure that your geniuses and your Mozarts and your Einsteins just never go anywhere and never achieve anything, right? Just, oh, you're on the farm, you stay on the farm, you're on the farm, we don't care, right? So who cares if that's a Rembrandt you've got there, right? Like, what a terrible idea. And it seems to me like most communists and most socialists and most nations that have tried to do it understand this. And understand that, like, no, like, if there's somebody in a farm who is like, God, I gotta paint. Fuck, I gotta paint. If I don't paint, I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. I gotta paint. Well, okay, go to the academy. And let's have some people who actually know what the fuck they're talking about look at you. And see if there's anything there worth looking at. Right? And not only that, we'll pay for your education. Right? Like, so off you go. And then, okay, but we still need, like, laborers on the farm. And so maybe we look at this guy who's going with, okay, we're paying for your education, you're going to be there. But, 2 years out of 10, you got to go back to the farm. Right? Just so that we all have food. Right? So, this idea of, like, just a guy getting stuck on a farm, like, why provide free education if that's the idea? Right? If the idea is just like, you were born on a farm, you stay on a farm, you're on a farm, and that's your farm. Right? Well, then why provide free education? Like, obviously they're looking at people and saying, like, look, if you want to do something different, if you want to pursue something different, you want to look at what is it in your heart that you think is of interest and of merit to the society. Well, you can come here, you can study it, you can talk to the most educated people in the society who are doing it. They do it for their living. In an institution, you can do it for free. So I just don't think that this idea of a person getting stuck in a farm really bears any merit or weight. I don't think it exists. It just sounds like a fear. It just sounds like a fear that is manifest, that I just don't think is real. Yeah, Leon Trotsky's father was a farmer. He didn't end up being forced into farming. Is the CCP like a big gang? Seems like if you don't play ball, Xi takes you out back to the pasture. Jack Ma. Jack Ma's not a hero, dude. Like, I don't know why we're looking at Jack Ma and being like, yeah, Jack Ma, what a great man. Probably not. Like, probably not. Is the CCP like a big gang? I mean, No, they're literally elected by the people. Again, you can take a look at the National People's Congress. Uh, Seems like if you don't play ball, i.e., break laws, right? Like if you break laws or are trying to corrupt the system, like we are so used to our political system being corrupted that we think that that's normal. We're so used to our wealthy and rich people being able to do whatever they want with no consequences whatsoever that we think that that's normal, right? That yeah, if people break laws and destroy economies in China, they face consequences. That doesn't make them authoritarian. That just makes them follow the rules that they have. This is sort of what I find very absurd about talking about China with Westerners. It's like it's gotten really, really clear to me that we have been so traumatized. We're so traumatized by this system of capital that we think that we're the normal ones. We're literally sitting here being like, it's completely normal that a billionaire can just do what he wants and face no consequences whatsoever. That's completely normal, right? Like, it's normal that Bill Gates went to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island and raped some children with Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, right? That's normal. That's just a normal thing that these guys get to normally do and face no consequences whatsoever, nor should they, right? Sure, in 2008, the financial system collapsed the economy, destroyed the world economy, impoverished a bunch of Americans, threw a bunch of people in the streets, increased homelessness by a bunch, right? And then got rewarded for it. Normal. That's normal. What a normal society we normally live in as normal people, right? But if any of those people were to actually face consequences, authoritarian, oh, they're just not playing, the gang is coming in to get, like, this is what you sound like to me, bud. Like, that's what you sound like to me. That wealthy people should not face consequences for their actions. And I strongly disagree. Yeah, billionaires shouldn't exist. Absolutely. Hit the like button, like, share, subscribe, do all the bells, do all the whistles. Think about donating. Even a dollar helps. Think about donating to my Patreon. Gets you into the Discord. All that stuff. I'm trying better to do this, but boy, do I hate it. I literally feel my soul drain out of my body when I ask for money. I don't like doing it, but make sure, like, share, subscribe, do all the things, hit the bells, hit the whistles, do all the stuff. I hope you guys are all doing really well out there in TikTok land, right? If you'd like to actually have a conversation with me, you can head over to the YouTube channel. I don't really respond to this because you can see there's, billionaires should exist. There's lots of clowns on TikTok. Yeah, go to North Korea. You wouldn't last one day. You would be crying, right? Like just juvenile teenage bullshit. So come over to YouTube if you want to have an adult conversation with an adult. Santora e Britannia. I love your name, dude. Santora e Britannia. Communists are recycling capitalism. We're destroying the power structure, not the buildings, factories, etc. We are here to help people and get them to do what they feel they enjoy. Yeah. Yeah, like, you can't just flip a switch. You can't just say you're communist and then it's done, right? Like, you actually have to put the work in and you actually have to change the structures and you actually have to work on it. It's a transition, and it's one, like, again, when I talk about the study of China and the history of China, especially the history of communist China, I think it's so important because you are seeing that transition. Like, that transition is really actually happening in China. That you have, and it's important to also remember that even the communists don't really know how that transition is going to work, and say things like it's going to be different for every country, right? Like, Marx didn't put a blueprint for how to achieve communism, so there's a lot of experimentation and there's a lot of trying of things, but in the broad stroke of it, what China has done is something that other nations should look to. So, like, the Maoist period is one of consolidation of power, chasing out capitalists from the center of the power structure, defeating imperialists, defeating so in America's case, that would be the police force, and stabilizing the nation, and then industrializing the nation and creating a strong, stable economy based on socialist principles. And then that shifts from Mao to Deng, and Mao wasn't happy about it, by the way. So to talk about like disagreements and differences of opinion, even within communism, that the shift from Mao to Deng takes place. Mao wanted everything to remain quite insular. He wanted China to remain China. He wanted them to continue building their productive forces, holding off the influence of foreign capital. That was Mao's idea. But Deng and the majority of the rest of the party and the majority of the rest of the populace tended to believe that the more prudent role was to open up the markets to foreign capital, open up the markets to trade with other organizations, create a more internationalist view of how to interact with the rest of the world. The Maoists called this a betrayal of the revolution, as always happens, always seems to happen. Anything that doesn't fit this purist fundamentalist view of communism is somehow a betrayal of the revolution. But the Dengists allowed capital into the system, right? Kept it out of the decision-making apparatus. So you had like private markets that started to set up throughout China, but kept it away from the power center. And then that transitions to Xi Jinping, whose role in this has now been to take the wealth that was built up because of this influx of capital and to make it more egalitarian, which he definitely has, and it's been very successful. And I think the major success of China and the Chinese Communist Party has been this idea of constantly passing the baton down the path. That here in America and Canada, you have forces, like political forces, fight against each other, right? So you got the liberal and then the conservative, and the liberal comes in and does something, and then the conservative comes in and destroys that. And then the liberal comes back in and destroys that. And there's a lot of this that happens. And this is supposed to be competition breeding innovation. But really all it is it's stagnation. And both of these forces respond exclusively to the capitalists, who are themselves also at odds with not only just themselves, but also the workers. So everyone is in this constant struggle and battle just to build their own pile of wealth and keep wealth for themselves and smash everybody else apart here in the West. Whereas in China, it's like Mao built something, and then there was a disagreement about how to move forward. But it's not like Deng came in and destroyed everything Mao did. Quite the opposite. Deng came in, took the baton, and carried it down. And then Xi comes in and takes the baton from Deng and basically keeps it moving down the path. And all of it for the benefit of the society. And if you read the history of the Communist Party from a non-Western perspective, it's real obvious that that's the case. Real obvious that that's the case. So obvious that the capitalists try to take credit for it for themselves, which is so absurd to even be believed. What if I told you all you could work for 10 to 15 years of your life, save money, buy arable land, and live off it the rest of your life? Yeah, no, PS5 OnlyFans or Netflix, but you'd be free. I don't understand your comment at all, Anthony. Honestly. Jake says, I don't watch a ton of news. I read books, though. Good position to be in, dude. Good position to be in. Don't watch a ton of news. Especially corporate news, dude. It rots your brain. It rots your brain, and it does it on purpose. Yep, China executes government officials that steal public funds. They tried to get appeals and plea, but the government said, nah, you're a corrupt leader. You have harmed the people. Now die. Yeah. Olaf says, but don't you fear the fact that if everyone are the same people, will eventually stop trying to do their best work? I don't fear that at all, Olaf. Quite the opposite. That what I see happening in our society is that people are not trying to do their best work. They're trying to do the work that pays the most, right? And so maybe they're working at it very hard. Maybe they are doing something very good, but it isn't actually coming from them because they believe in it. That I actually think that, like, people want to do stuff. People want to invent and create and make, and they don't need to be incentivized by profit to do so. That I find this to be one of the, and I'm definitely not accusing you of anything here, but I do think this needs to be said. This is one of the most reprehensible ideas of capitalism because it's dehumanizing. It completely removes from the human being the concept of the human spirit and the idea that there is something of value that exists within the heart and soul of a human that can be expressed simply because it needs to be expressed. And capitalism doesn't give a shit about that at all. It wants something to sell. And so it wants to, so it takes its artists and like this new AI thing that's happening should tell you everything you need to know. That capitalists are trying to literally replace artists with a robot. Just, yeah, we don't need humans producing art. We don't need humans producing things. We don't need humans saying anything interesting about humanity and trying to produce something that speaks to the soul of a human being. No, absolutely not. We don't need that. We can have just a robot shit out pretty pictures, right? That tells you everything you need to know about the ethos of capitalism and just the destruction of the human spirit and the human soul is completely dehumanizing and completely eliminates from the discourse the idea that sometimes a person needs to do something just because they need to do it, and there's nothing outside of that. And capitalism works against this idea. It's not interested in allowing people the space or the room to be able to create this stuff. Certainly not the capital to be able to create this stuff. Because capitalism, it works against the human spirit. It's not in favor of, like, humans are tools. Humans are property in capitalism. And the idea that a human being can create something that transcends that idea is offensive to the capitalist. And so they need to destroy it. And, like, the system of capital is deeply offended by the arts. That's why that they work really hard to destroy it and undercut it, even though it doesn't make any fucking sense from even an economics perspective to do that. But the ethos of a human being sacred or important just because they're a human being is deeply offensive to capitalism. That capitalism needs people to believe that they are workers who work for money exclusively. And if you actually think that you should actually be able to speak something from your soul that is important into the world, capitalists are going to clamp down on you so hard on that. They don't want to hear that. They're not interested in that. Because they know that from that endeavor becomes actual radicals and people who are actually very scary for them because they can't do anything to them outside of murder them, right? Like someone like Martin Luther King. Like, Martin Luther King was a fucking artist. He was brilliant at the artistry that he did. Right? Civil rights activist is what they call him, but he was an artist. He was a writer and a poet and a speech maker, and so they shot him. Right? That's how scared they were of him. That they had to gun him down in the street. Yeah, capitalism should be making art, but instead we're working a stupid job. And the job is stupid. Like, it's a stupid job. Like, all of these jobs are so fucking stupid. Like literally, like, giving candies to grown-up baby people. Like, that's essentially what we're doing. Like, your job is either working in the back end of how do we get candy into the face of boomer babies, or actually delivering it to their faces. Like, that, these are essentially the major jobs that exist in the society, and it's stupid. Thank you, Edward. I appreciate that. Yeah, go to Cabrini Green in Chicago. You wouldn't last one day. Yeah. Well, and Watson, it's so stupid to even say it, right? Like, it's like, go to a place where you don't know anyone and don't speak the language and have no money. You wouldn't last a day. Like, yeah, bro. Like, obviously. Content says, oh yeah, we really need to stop underestimating how many people are willing to do undesirable work if their needs were met. In socialism, I would be a janitor. Yeah, that I think is a real fair point, man. Like, I do think, I know of myself, like, if the society was structured so everyone was taken care of and everything was fine, I'd be like, oh yeah, you need that mopped over there? Absolutely, right? But I'm not going to work for a system that's destroying us and destroying itself. I'm not going to work for a system that generates wealth by going and enslaving other populations. Like, I'm not interested in that. There are things that are more important to me than subserviating myself to a system that is literally, like, destroying itself and destroying the species, no less. Like, we can and should do better than this. Real freedom lovers also love the whole human family will be much happier under communism and socialism. Absolutely. Who's Ted Kaczynski? That sounds like a weird name. Ted Kaczynski was right. Ted Kaczynski is... Oh yeah. Bye-bye. Weird little Nazi. We don't need weird little Nazis in the chat, dude. Jeremy says it's about providing a perceived value. The impacts can be disregarded if you're a psychopath. Yeah, sadly, psychopaths can optimize their attainment of power in any economic system because they manipulate. That's right. The hard work pays off trope. Yeah, exactly. Actually, John, the liberal and conservative only attack each other on everything that does not matter to the ruling class that owns them. Yeah, basically they agree with each other more often than not. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right, Watson. Trained workers guard militias, take care of rogue warlord things. Yeah. Yeah. What makes China different is what China permits, gives permission for capital to function when it makes sense. They do not give power to capital or put profit in command. Well, and you can see this happening in the modern era right now under the Biden administration. There's a ton of articles that are starting to come out from, like, the New York Times, Washington Post, and all this kind of stuff, where they're lamenting about how China used to be a great place to invest, but now you can't find investments. It's no good. It's because Xi Jinping is nationalizing everything, right? They're beginning that process of leveling it off, and they're beginning that process of pushing the capitalists out. That when they introduced the capitalists into the system, it really was just to be like, oh, yeah, come over here, build industry, like do that kind of stuff. But those industries are ours, right? Like, we're not just going to allow you, like, think about how fucking stupid this is. That we actually allowed major factories and manufacturers to just leave, to deindustrialize the nation and go somewhere else. Well, they've gone to China, and China is going, okay, great, yeah, you've built a factory here, that's wonderful. And then the capitalists are going, well, we're going to leave. And the Chinese are going to go, well, you're going to leave. The building isn't. And we, the Chinese Communist Party, are just going to take that. Like, that the building and the factory and the workers and all that, that's still there. You, the worthless capitalist that was never of any value whatsoever, can go fuck off. And that's exactly what's happening. And they come over here and then cry about it. And every time I read one of these articles, I laugh my ass off. Because it's like, yeah, they did the thing they said they were going to do. The thing is that Americans are so corrupted by capital and they're so convinced in this idea that everyone is a grifter that they don't actually believe anything they're told. And so when the Chinese Communist Party says, yeah, come over here, build your industry, and then when you leave, because you will, we'll take it. They don't actually believe that. But that's exactly what they've done. And I don't see why they shouldn't. There's this guy named Charles Einstein. He writes about things... Is that Essenstein? He writes and talks about disconnect from keeping things sacred and the interconnectedness of all beings. It's also why capitalism... Yeah. Well, I mean, capitalism fails because ultimately you can't extract infinitely. right? There's no such thing as infinite extraction. Like, you just, eventually you just can't do it. Yeah, thinking Ted Kaczynski was right is not the flex you think it is. I think Ted Kaczynski is actually kind of a sad story, honestly. I think he got his brain completely messed up by the CIA. Ah, the Unabomber, yeah. Like, not what he was doing was explicitly wrong, very obviously. I just think that, like, he got his brain scrambled by the CIA is what happened to him. And yeah, saying that he was right is like, that doesn't strengthen your position, dude. Santora, I would, no joke, work a massive number of jobs and gamify whatever it was to be, so people will do it. Yeah, I mean, what I think is crazy is that, like, there's so much work to actually be done, but no one's actually doing the work that needs to be done because it doesn't directly benefit capitalists. And so the capitalists won't pay for it, right? So, like, your bridges will crumble and fall over and, like, infrastructure will fall apart, but the capitalists don't give a shit about that because it doesn't matter to them. They don't use that bridge. Content says, one time I worked on a Skyrim mod for 32 hours straight because I wanted it to exist so bad. I didn't do it for profit or even to develop a skill to make money. I just needed to make it. Yeah, and then the capitalists will turn around and be like, wow, it was a waste. Or what? You're lazy. You're just lazy. You need to find a way to make money off that. It's like, no, dude. Like, that's the whole point. Is like, artistry is about changing the world for the better in some way. It's about beautifying the world or commenting on something or making something, and or sometimes it's not for any of that. I think that's one of the things that I've really come to learn as I've gotten older is, like, sometimes art is just for the sake of it. That you feel something in your chest or your heart or your balls and you're just like, it's got to exist. I need this to exist. And you don't know why. Like, you don't know why. As the artist, you don't know why it needs to exist. But if you constantly have this, like, oh yeah, you know why, to make money, then you're going to produce garbage that's going to be forgotten the minute somebody looks at it, like the Marvel movies. Right? You watch a Marvel movie and then you just kind of forget what happened because it doesn't actually matter. Lit check, how you doing, bud? How do you decide when what you're reading is propaganda or not regarding Chinese current events? Are there any sources that can be pretty confidently trusted in their reporting or nah? Yeah, it's tough when it comes to China. I wouldn't trust any Western sources whatsoever. Like, really. I do find that places like Ben Norton, The Gray Zone, do pretty good reporting on it. Essentially, once you find out that someone's lying, then you can essentially shut them down. You can basically be like, okay, I no longer need to trust you as a reputable source, right? So the National Post, for example, like, the National Post still regurgitates the Mao killed 100 million people in a famine lie, right? That's so obviously a lie that you've really got to be, like, pretty dim-witted to keep that lie going. It's just so overtly a lie. So the National Post, you could just basically be like, okay, bye. We don't need to take that seriously. I actually think that lie is one of the best ways. Because most anti-China people, most people who have this anti-Chinese ethos, will keep bringing that Mao's famine during the Great Leap Forward lie forward as if it was real, and once they do that, you can basically be like, oh, okay, like, light switch off, bye bye. I don't need to pay attention to you anymore, because if they're gonna lie about that kind of thing, then there is no level. You can't get bigger than, like, 100 million people died in a famine that nobody saw and it didn't happen. Like, you can't get bigger than that. And so if they're going to tell a lie that big, then they'll tell any lie. And so I usually think that that's a pretty good place to be. Incoming some of the TikTok people. They're going to be like, that famine definitely happened even though there's no evidence of it. No, I'm not going to show you any evidence. Not even a photo. 30 million people died and we've got no evidence of it whatsoever, but it definitely happened. Yeah, I've done janitorial work. No respect, no security, no living wage. Yeah, but you're the one keeping the place clean. That's the thing that's so fucked up, right? It's so fucked up that the people who are responsible for, like, keeping things clean in our society are denigrated and disrespected. I think it's brutal. Like, it's absolutely brutal. Yeah, almost 2 months since the Peru coup happened. Good to see you, Vince. Ligon to see. Exactly. Lover's Lab is far more valuable than quick money. No, you're not joking about that. How dare you joke about that, Ligon to see. Lover's Lab is a service to all of us. Yep. We got that right here, bud. 500,000 Britons in the street. Can't get 20 people out to a protest here in Canada. Yep. Sounds like Chief comes in. Sounds like you need a bomb of pure freedom. Rah! USA! 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 Absolutely, bud. What we need to do is we need to go over to China and liberate them with our freedom bombs. And we'll free the Uyghurs even though we don't give a shit about Muslims. And we'll free the Tibetans even though we don't give a shit about the Buddhists. Like, since when have Americans ever given a shit about Muslims ever? That's the funniest thing, dude. Like, I went down like a big like Uyghur genocide rabbit hole and talked about it on the channel and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, I spent a lot of time on that and I've had big arguments about it and all that kind of stuff, so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. And then I really recently come to realize, like, oh, wait, like, all of that was pointless. Because all you really actually do have to say is, since when do you give a shit about what happens to Muslims? Since when does any American, anywhere, in any state, city, township, county, give one fuck at all what happens to any Muslim anywhere? Like, even if the Chinese were doing this to the Uyghurs, they're not, but even if they were, stop pretending like you give a shit about it. Like, Americans are literally blowing up Iraq, Afghanistan, foaming at the mouth to blow up Iran. But yeah, they really give a shit about the Uyghurs in China, dude. They really give a fuck about that. Like, Jesus Christ. Any excuse to murder people, eh? Any excuse to just go on a rampage and murder people. Like, the Americans are so psychotic, dude. It's crazy to watch. It's just crazy to watch this obvious psychopathic monster just come up with any excuse it could possibly come up with to massacre people they've never met. Just Jesus Christ, dude. Tucker Carlson called out Matthew Green for saying Parliament should reject Tucker's invasion comments. Yeah, dude, it's pretty funny that happened in Parliament. That Tucker Carlson said the United States should invade Canada. The NDP tried to get a unanimous bill passed to condemn that. It failed because there are Nazis, obviously, in the Conservative Party, and so now Tucker Carlson is clapping back, and it's like pretty brutal, like pretty brutal to watch, actually. Like, why is Tucker Carlson calling for anybody to invade anybody, let alone America to invade Canada? Like, what a clown. Standard model, CIA funding, anyone who could undermine or disrupt a society in our crosshairs, yeah. Yeah, Candace Bergen, fascist? Yeah, probably. Like, yeah, dude. Oh, there are fascists in the Conservative Party. Yeah, big fucking surprise. Yeah, South Park proved Canada's guilt, right? Blame Canada! Blame Canada! Exactly. See, this is why I don't look at TikTok. He must live in his mom's basement. Dude, I have a full-time job. I live in an apartment in Toronto. Like, you're an embarrassment. What an embarrassing person. Just like, what else we got? Communism would never work, except that it completely does. There are, like, major, massive societies where it's completely working. Just kind of embarrassing yourself. Like, I do wonder what it's going to take for Americans to start to really realize, like, their society has failed. Like, that it's a rogue terrorist state. The rest of the world sees it as a rogue terrorist state. I really do think it is just going to have to be the devaluation of the dollar. I think that's the only thing Americans are going to actually care about. Because, like, Americans clearly don't care about, like, the arts. They clearly don't care about, like, Jesus. They don't give a shit at all about, like, Christ or anything. They don't care about, so they don't care about religion. They don't care about, like, Muslims or Jews, certainly, as we've seen over and over, right? They don't seem to care about, like, ethics or morals or values of any sort. Seems like the only thing the Americans seem to actually care about is money. And the dollar is going to go into a complete tailspin soon, right? And maybe then a bunch of people will be like, oh no, my God is collapsing. Because essentially that's what it is. It's just money worship. Jeremy, an argument you hear often is you can build communism within capitalism. So why are the commies not doing it? What's your take on that? I mean, we're trying, but, you know, the CIA does kick people's doors in. Like, that 100% happens. And, like, people get arrested. There have been long, like, the McCarthy period 100% happened, right? Like, the idea that there isn't, like, that capitalists are not actively trying to purge communists as communists attempt to organize is dumb. Like, just dumb. Like communists are trying, right? But this man apparently loves communism, but he's never lived under communist regime. It's you're critiquing feudalism, and yet you eat the king's grain. I'm very clever. Like, that's not a serious statement, dude. It's very unserious. There is a neo-manifest destiny relying on capitalist thinking to invade Canada and Mexico due to climate change and the imperial decline. Yeah, dude, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to hear them openly talk about it, right? Right? It's terrifying to see, like, the most popular mainstream media speaker, which is Tucker Carlson, actually say we should go in there and invade Canada. Like, that's actually really scary. What's my opinion of the Soviet Union? It was nice while it lasted. It was nice while it lasted. They industrialized an agrarian nation in a single generation, defeated the Nazis, the most terrifying army that capitalism ever produced, and were the first people into space. They eliminated homelessness, increased literacy in their own public. The rent was pegged at 4% of your income. The Soviet Union had a lot of good things going for it. It would have been really nice if Nazis didn't attack it. What will it take for Americans to reject capitalism? For me, it took rejecting everything that my culture ever taught me. Yeah? I deconverted from Christianity, rejected capitalism, and now I'm an anarchist. Yeah, it is a tough road, isn't it? Because there's a lot of propaganda. Also, you would go to the gulag if you stopped clapping first. Yeah, just baby brain shit. I love it when the baby brains come in and say this kind of stuff. It's just so childish. Like, if you stopped clapping first, they would send you to the gulag. That's a serious thing that definitely happened. Like, it's on the same level as, like, if you're nice, then Santa Claus will come and give you presents, right? Someone will come and get you presents if you're nice to Santa, but if you're not nice, then you'll get a thing of coal. Like, it's that kind of intellectual level. It's just amazing to see how easy it is to trick people. Yeah, somebody read the Gulag Archipelago recently. Yeah. Somebody wrote a fictional novel and presented it as if it was fact. Yeah, I read 1984, and that's exactly how Soviet Union was. Yeah, if you're not nice, you get the Krampus. Exactly. Yeah, unlike those barbarous commies and their gulags, we have freedom prisons, TM, exactly. You'll be so free in our freedom prisons where we have 25% of the world's prison population. But we're the freest. Look how free we are with 25% of the world's prison population, most of them black people. We're free! You have never lived under a communist regime, therefore you will never know how it was. Like, how do you argue against this logic, against the way that this thinks? Like, you can read books, you can talk to people, you can look at their country, you can know things, and then you can say, man, that would be nice. Like, basically what you're saying is, if I live in a house that doesn't have a roof on it, and I've never lived in a house that doesn't have a roof on it, and I say, I would like to live on a house with a roof on it, you can just say, well, you've never lived in a house that has a roof on it. So what do you know? And that's the end of that conversation. Right? Like, it's not something I take particularly seriously. I find it kind of odd that people say it. Edward says, we are fish in an ideological fishbowl, trying to accurately think and perceive the world. A bit of effort is required, yeah. Well, and I think the biggest thing that we can do, and I'm trying to find ways to streamline this process for people, to try to get them to think about what's going on around them a little bit quicker, because I do think that speed is going to be important. Really begin to perceive the world around you within this trifecta, which is the worship of money, the worship of the self, and the worship of ignorance. And we're seeing that on display right here. I am someone living in a post-communist country. Oh, so a post-communist country. So a country that is not communist, but is post-communist. Okay, right? Like, I'm in favor of communism, not post-communism. And so I know a little more about communism. Well, one of the things that I know about communism is all of those post-communist countries would like to go back to communism. So, I mean, who are the outliers? The outliers are Romania at 45% and Poland at 47%. But you do have places like even Ukraine. Ukraine itself, 75%. Like, again, like, I'm not arguing in favor of post-communism. I'm arguing in favor of communism. And there are reasons why the Soviet Union fell over. Like, it didn't happen economically. It was a political decision. So, how do you know how capitalism is if you've never lived on it? You just look at their healthcare system, homelessness, wages, living standards. Yeah. These polls are taken from Gallup. The one on the left is a Gallup poll. It's OpenDemocracy.net, InScope, and Gallup. I wouldn't show it to you guys, and I wouldn't use it if it wasn't well-sourced. So, that's a Gallup poll. And then the one on the right is Statista. It says so right in the bottom right-hand corner. So, like, Gallup, like, fairly reputable polling company. Like, they're not just, like, some hacks. I know nothing about communism or any political stuff I'm willing to learn. Oh, that's all you really need to do, big guy. That's it. It's up to you, bud. It doesn't matter to me at all. The Cosmonaut. Don't think I've ever heard you say why communism is better. Just why capitalism is bad. Oh, okay. I mean, you could take a look at what was going on in the Soviet Union or modern day China. Even places like Vietnam, like you end up with an education system where nobody's paying for anything. If communism never works, how come the CIA has to come in and stop it every time? Exactly, Cal. Beautiful first comment, bud. Beautiful first comment. The classic pivot grift, right? Oh, the poll is wrong. The poll is wrong. That's the poll's the problem. Well, if you think the poll's wrong, then you go find your own poll, right? I've got a Gallup poll. What do you got? Fuck all in ears I can see. Communism is a better system because like, you take a look at modern day China, they literally lifted like 800 million people out of poverty, like over a very, very short period of time. That the egalitarian system of communism insists that people should be taken care of. In the Soviet Union, they eliminated homelessness. They're the first people into space, for God's sakes. Personally, my favorite thing that I like to point out is that in the Soviet Union, rent was pegged at 4% of income. Right? You see how we're going through a housing crisis right now here in capitalism? See how we're in the midst of this major housing crisis? Rents are going through the roof. People are paying like 50, 60, 70% of their income on rent. Imagine if you were paying 4% of your income on rent. What would happen? What would happen to your life? Yeah, I think communism's better. I just think it's a better idea. The mistake of the Soviet Union was that it was nothing like what these hysterical anti-commie liberals think it was. Yeah. DVM comes in, first comment. Hey, man. First of all, it's fun listening to you as a sort of podcast while gaming. That's the whole idea, bud. That's my whole thing. I want nothing more. Nothing would please me better than for gamer types to listen to me as they podcast instead of listening to these weird little fascists that seem to have taken over the gaming industry. Boy, does that piss me off so much. It makes me so mad that gamers are taking fucking these far-right lunatic fringe assholes seriously at all. And so, sorry, the cosmonaut, say what you want, but how many flights on the moon does the Soviet Union have? Checkmate. Yeah, you got me, bud. You got me, yeah. The Americans definitely were the first to place a man on the moon by creating a robust government program that was well-funded, modeled after the communists' program. You're absolutely right. They did it. Fantastic. Checkmate. What's my opinion on communist Yugoslavia? I got to admit, and I'll be serious, I don't know that much about Yugoslavia. I can't comment on Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, it happened right before I was like kind of aware, and since then I've been focused on a lot of other stuff, and I've been promising people that I would actually read up on it and know more, but my general opinion, just, and this is not a very literate position, but just my feeling of it, is that Yugoslavia was trying to build a society based on communist ideas and were being successful, and so the Americans had to stop them. That's basically what happened, near as I can tell. And I can't tell you the specifics, but I don't see why that should, I don't know why Yugoslavia would be much different than most of the other places where America has done exactly that. I love how these communists are usually people from the West who haven't lived in a communist country and don't know how it really was. I mean, I would argue that the Chinese are very communist in the way that they talk and think, and you can go talk to them, right? Like, the idea that communist, like this communist idea is coming from the West, like, bro, like, it's just L after L after L what you're doing. Like, it's really crazy. John, look up Titoism. Yes, Tito. Tito seems to be the guy that everybody focuses on. Duck Plays Gaming. Hi, I wanted to look at what Stalin did at the start of the war. Look up order number... What? You mean against the Nazis? Like, this is the weirdest thing that people do, man. Is they're like, the Soviets were absolutely vicious and barbarous. Yeah, against the Nazis? Is this who you're defending? Is this in China you can go to prison for what you say. Yeah, if you stand up and say we should kill people in China, they take that seriously. You're just too used to living in a country where the rich don't get away with stuff. That's all it is, dude. Like, the Chinese have laws and they want you to follow them. And you're just used to living in a lawless society. People get surprised when I tell them that a country that is sanctioned like Cuba developed a third COVID-19 vaccines and are sending them to China, Vietnam, and Iran. Yeah. Like, it's absolutely... Locked Outs really drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah, I watched that short history cartoon too, dude. Like, you gotta turn off the CIA propaganda, bud. You really gotta do it. I know white children of happy suburbia who love China and won't ever come back. Yeah, well, we know you won't, Watson. Absolutely. Even the Nazis were far worse than the Soviet Union during World War II. I don't even know how much shit like that, but they know that much at least. Yeah, I mean, like, they were the aggressors, right? Right? They were the aggressors. Look how you present yourself. You don't even take care of yourself. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's just baby brain shit right there. You just need to grow up, dude. That's all. You just need to grow up and find out how to talk to people properly. That's all. In my country, a reporter ended up on Gully Otak because she made a joke in the newspaper about Tito. Okay. Okay, serious question. Proceeds to ask the most unserious question one can ask. Like, why don't you live in a communist country? Because I don't speak the language, I don't know anyone there, and I don't feel like abandoning my country in its hour of need. Like, real basic, simple shit. Growing up is realizing that Imperial Japan was worse than Nazi Germany. Yeah, I mean, that definitely is an argument to be made for that, for sure, dude. Like, the Chinese were absolutely brutalized by Japan, and people who don't understand that don't really understand the relationship. Don't really understand the relationship between Japan and China, and the brutality that the Japanese wrought on the Chinese. The Nazi attack on the Soviet Union was called the War of Annihilation. The reason was to primarily rid the world of Judeo-Bolshevism. Yeah. Yeah, right? So, yeah, I think that it's probably a good thing that the leader who was in charge at the time was willing to put up a strong front against that. Wow, it's not like commies to call anyone a Nazi? I don't call anyone a Nazi, I just call Nazis Nazis. Croatians, Ustashi had the nastiest concentration camps. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. If you want proof that Japan was worse than Nazis, look up Unit 731. I don't think I really, like... I don't actually think that's a very interesting conversation, right? Who is worse, the imperialist Japanese or the Nazis? I think we can conclude together as a group that both are bad, and it is good that we defeated them. It's good that the imperialist Japanese were defeated, and it's good that the Nazis were defeated. It's good that the communists pushed them back, and it's good that the communists defeated the Nazis. It's good that the communists defeated imperialist Japan, right? It fills me with warmth to know that communists can defeat fascists when it comes down to the fight, right? Yet another good reason to be a communist instead of a fascist, because you want to be on the winning side of history. Like, fascists are able to win in the short term, but they rarely win in the long term. Well, they don't win in the long term. Edward says, propaganda mixes levels of extraction to deceive. Specific anecdotes, true or not, are offered to rebut overwhelming verified truth. Sophist's trick. Yeah. I mean, you can... That's more or less the strategy with the internet these days. Right? Like, just present so much information. Just blitz people with so much that it confuses the issue and confuses things. Right? And really try to muddy the waters as much as possible. Don't try to find out what's true. Right? Don't try to clarify what's actually going on. Actively work to confuse and muddy the waters. Right? How do you argue that many still communist countries have failed? Like, I literally don't know what you're talking about. Like, straight up. Like, sure, you had the Soviet Union as a body that collapsed, and that's a whole story unto itself. But, like, that's a very special story, and the first time that the communist experiment is tried. Most of the rest of the time, I just see the United States bomb the shit out of a place and then leave. So I literally don't know what you're talking about. I think the U.S. had more of an effect pushing the Japanese back during World War II because of the Pacific Theater and the atomic bombs. I mean, I think it's like one, like, I think we're both right. There's the way to say it. Like, yeah, the Americans definitely had an impact, for sure. Like when they got involved in the Pacific Theater, it definitely had an impact. Whatever. Vietnam isn't good. just baby brain take after baby brain take. But the atomic bombs were not justified. That's right. They dropped bombs on the Japanese to threaten the Soviets. That's what that was all about. Right? That's what that was all about. Oh, dude, this guy is like just massive L after massive L after massive L. Look at Cuba today. Life there is now very bad. Yeah, they're surrounded by Americans who are interested in strangling them to death. Like, nah, I just don't think you know what you're talking about, Best Soldier. Can you give it an example? Like, you can't just say it's corrupt. Like, you've got to actually provide an example. And, like, what do you mean by corrupt? You should know how much devastation it can bring into smaller countries, right? Yeah. Caleb Maupin got really outed as a... Caleb Maupin got really outed recently as a... Caleb Maupin got outed as a real sex pest, dude. In a way that I can't walk back from. Like I can't. I'm not gonna like. It's not like he was like. It's not like he was like saying raunchy things online or something like that, right? Like he was actively like grooming people and like putting them in bad situations. I just don't think I can. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think if you can get to that place where you can say to yourself, like, I'm fine with that and I'm good to move forward with that, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not, to me, consent matters a lot. Consent matters a lot. And putting people in positions where they lose the ability to consent is tough. Communism is bad, you goblin. Wow, a goblin. I've never been called a goblin. That's funny. Best Soldier, this just is wrong. Like, I don't even know what to say to you, dude. Like, I feel like you are watching the same news channels that are like, in North Korea, they believe unicorns are real. In North Korea, if you don't get the same haircut as the dear leader, then you go to prison. Yeah, source, please. Like we're communists, right? We use historical materialism. We like to analyze what's going on with facts and evidence, and so if you're going to make a claim like that. It's pretty... Okay, well, what should we look up? What should we look up? Got my keyboard. What are we looking up? If it's so easy to find, right? What should I type into Google? Right? Let's do it. Let's see your source. Yeah. You mean like George Bush being president because of family ties? I just found it just browsing the internet, not even looking for it. Oh, this sounds extremely credible, dude. This sounds extraordinarily credible. Yeah, I found it somewhere. Some guy on the internet said it. Credible. I'm 100% persuaded. I've been convinced by a random guy on the internet saying that another random guy on the internet said that something... Yeah. Oh, and here's the pivot. Here's the pivot. Best Soldier, dude, do you not understand that I don't take you seriously at all anymore? Like, I'm not really going to engage with you in a serious way. Because, like, come on, bro. Like, I'm here to try to clarify things for people. I'm here to use evidence. I'm interested in facts. I'm interested in what's actually going on in the world. Like, I'm not really that interested in dudes coming in here and saying, oh, I heard a thing on the internet by a guy and I don't know where to find it. Like, and then who follows it up by, I think both communism and capitalism are really flawed. Okay, I don't really care what you think. Like, I don't really care what you think, bud. Like, credible, interesting people back up what they say with evidence, facts, papers, documents. Like, they don't just find random nonsense on the internet and then turn around and throw it in other people's faces. Ugh. Okay, look for Chinese military leader illiterate. Here we go. Chinese military leader illiterate. Illiterate. The single grade. Okay, so here he is. Chinese military leader. Probably not him. Gray Dragons assessing China's senior military leadership. China investigates. Maybe preparing to fight itself. Today challenge. Yep, not finding it, bud. I'm not spending my time doing research on this. Like, does communism equal dictatorship? No. That oftentimes people get confused by the idea of because there's a phrase called the dictatorship of the proletariat. And the idea is that right now we live under a dictatorship of capital, that it's only capitalists that can get into the hall of power, it's only capitalists that are responsible for decision making, and that communism wants to flip that and create a dictatorship of the proletariat. So it's so the capitalists are excluded from it. It's not a dictatorship. It's the idea is that capitalists are corrupt and are not interested in actually governing, and so should not be permitted to govern. And we should remove them from the halls of power and remove their power completely. Yeah, D. Marie. John, I just hopped off and saw my first ever ad with Jordan Peterson, on marriage no less. You guys always talk about him. I'm going to blame you for that ad. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we got to do something about these communists. You know, these cultural Marxists are taking over the universities, and it's turning the frogs gay, and everybody's going to be gay soon because of it. And the decline of Western values and civilization can be linked to the dragon of chaos that's going through the ethos of our own. Take your meds, Jordan. What do you think about what Kennedy said? Democracy is not perfect, but we have never had to build a wall to keep our people in. I don't really give a shit, honestly. Should they have Stalin's body embalmed on display just like Lenin's? Yeah, I gotta tell you, dude, I do find that to be weird. Like, embalming Lenin's body and then displaying it, I'm a bit like, weird. Feels weird. I think even if I was Lenin, I would be like, that's a bit weird. You know? But people are people, and they do fucking crazy shit. Stalin's a bit too controversial a figure, honestly. Even within Russia. Like, even though I think most Russians have a somewhat positive view of the Stalinist period, although, you know, the getting attacked by Nazis part, probably not so much. But everybody agrees that Lenin was the bomb. Like, everybody agrees that, like, Lenin was the bomb.com. That, when Putin critiques Lenin, it's with the softest of brushes. Like, Lenin is a very sort of sacred figure. Whereas Stalin, like, I think most people in Russia regard him as a good leader, but not the same as Lenin. Very solid historical patterns surround all U.S. military history. These weight the verification of fact as well as the honest logic. Look at China's economy. Dude, China's trouncing us. Like, what are you even talking about, bro? Like, look at China's economy? What the fuck are you talking about? Stop embarrassing yourself in here, dude. Who here is defending Stalin? I'm certainly not. America bombed Japan because they fucked with our boats. That's right. Protest because of COVID laws. Oh no, a country that had a protest. Oh no. Because there's never ever been a protest in your own country. Oh no. Like, come on, man. People protested in China because of the COVID thing. There's never been a freedom convoy. Nobody protested here in China, in North America. They certainly didn't take big giant trucks and go to the parliament buildings and honk honk. That definitely didn't happen. But people went out in the streets and said, I don't know about this COVID thing here in China, and that's bad. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. They are hoarding all their food because they fear running out. So, like, you do understand that. No, I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. Hey, Miranda. Oh, Miranda, good to see you. I hope you're doing well, Miranda. It's a pleasure to see you. Like, America is going to go to war with China, right? Just like they went to war with Russia through this Ukraine proxy war, right? They're going to do a proxy war with China through Taiwan. And so China wants to have built up food supply. They're planning for a war because they see it coming. And the reason they see it coming is because the Americans openly talk about doing it. And so the Chinese want to have food to be able to make it through the war. And you are sitting there going, that makes them bad somehow. Like, just L after L after L after L after L. Just L after L after L after L with these guys, man. Like, these people coming in, and I don't mind people coming in and saying things that are dumb, obviously, like this Mr. Comer. But it's this, like, cock-swagging, like, confidence when they clearly don't know anything. Miranda says Toronto District School Board has passed making grade 11 English focused on Indigenous literature. Small win. That is small. That's not that small a win. That's a pretty big win if you ask me, especially when you consider about what's going on south of the border, right? South of the border, Americans are literally removing critical race theory, CRT, right? And that means that they're basically just saying of the history of slavery, no, we're not going to teach the history of slavery. We're literally not going to teach people what happened during the slave period. It's just going to be eliminated completely from the discourse. And compare that to what we're doing, where we're actually saying, no, that this definitely happened. The residential school systems happened. Like this occurred completely, and there isn't a similar movement against it. I don't think that that's that small a win. I actually consider that to be a pretty big win, and one that really distinguishes our society and our culture from the Americans to the South. That we want to admit what happened, and we want to talk about what happened, and we want to move forward in truth and reconciliation. I think that that's a beautiful thing, and I hope that we can continue moving forward in that spirit. Because nothing is worse than maintaining the illusion and remaining ignorant. It's one of the pillars of the downfall of Western civilization, is this worship of ignorance. And we shouldn't tolerate it. We shouldn't tolerate it at all. Communism could slow down technological process. Oh man, these guys are so embarrassing. Like, it's so obvious that they don't know anything. Like, they don't know anything. Like, that's the best part. Like, China's literally, like, the first quantum satellite is in space now because of the Chinese. The Chinese are the first people to investigate the dark side of the moon. The Chinese are making technological breakthroughs in fusion technology. The Russians were the first people into space. The cell phone was created by Russians. Like, by communists. Like, you simply do not know what you're talking about. And it's really, really, really obvious. Chinese ran over students protesting with tanks. You saw the picture of the tank and the guy, the tank man picture, right? Do you know what happens after that picture? Some friends come and get the guy and they leave, and the tank just sits there and watches them do it. Like, embarrassing comment after embarrassing comment after embarrassing comment coming out of you, bud. Like, just L after L after L after L after L after L. Like, you're really just proving to me that, like, this worship of ignorance is so... And, like, you're so confident in your ignorance as well, is the best part. And why do I want communism? Because I think there shouldn't be homeless people. That's always been the basis of this for me. Like, I began calling myself a communist because other people would call me a communist, because I would say there shouldn't be homeless people. And people would be like, oh, that's commie talk. And I'd be like, then I'm a fucking communist. There shouldn't be homeless people. The idea that there should be homeless people is evil. Just evil. And we have the technology, the power, the resources to be able to eliminate it, and we choose not to. Yeah, Mr. Kami probably thinks the current Prime Minister of Italy is a freedom fighter, not a fascist. No, bud. But I just don't care what you think. Like, okay, some weirdo on the internet who doesn't know anything and keeps regurgitating CIA propaganda. Yeah, like, no one cares what you think. It's this worship of ignorance that is very concerning for me, right? That 10 minutes, buddy. 10 minutes. I'll come get you in 10 minutes, okay? I can't help you out. I got 10 more minutes. That the real struggle of what we're going through is this trifecta, this ideological trifecta, that we have an economic system that isn't an economic system, that is a religious ideology, almost exclusively a religious ideology. And the religious ideology circles around this trifecta that is the worship of money. Money is God. So if somebody has money, they're good, right? And if people don't have money, then they can be rejected. You can see that on how we treat the poor and treat the disabled and treat the homeless, right? Whereas we worship complete, overt, obvious grifters. People who are obvious grifters right in front of our faces. And we're just like, but they have money, so we love them. And then you have the worship of the self. This hyper-individualist stuff that says that a single individual can overwhelm all of the power of all individuals and all societies, and that wealth and power they're not just born into it, they earned it. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Just as chucklehead a position as you can take. But we worship it. So we worship the self above all else. And then the worship of ignorance. That we love stupid people. And the stupider they are, the better. And if they can sound really smart while being really stupid, we regard that skill very highly. Then that's essentially Jordan Peterson to a T, right? That, like, he sounds really smart while being really stupid, and so we really value that. Miranda says, a new point, as someone who's a social worker, do you know how much money they spend to keep shelters open and running? The government has more than enough to pay to house everyone. Absolutely. We have the resources. Like, we have the resources. It's dim-witted to believe otherwise. It's dim-witted to believe otherwise. DVM, I'll be honest, I don't know that much about that Kosovo situation. I don't want to comment on it directly, but I will say that whoever the Americans were bombing, I'm against the Americans, because there's no way the Americans were on the right side of that. So whoever they were bombing during that period of time, I really got to sit down and learn something about that. It's a little blind spot. Like, I came into this kind of awareness after that happened. and so I'm not that aware of what happened in Kosovo and in Yugoslavia generally. See, I love this, right? She said a lot of stupid things just for votes, the Italian prime minister, and you take it seriously. Yes, we often take fascists seriously. Like, we often take what fascists say seriously. And this argument that says she just said things for votes, probably not. Like, probably not, bro. Yeah, we are raised on Disney, American exceptionalism, and shopping is freedom. Yeah, and what about 100 years of toxic lead exposure? Yeah, exactly, Watson. Now he soft pedals a fascist. Yeah, just L after L with this guy. Kind of just keep him around because it's amusing. It's like a weird little pet. Just like a weird little like if the CIA had like a little emoji. Sure, there shouldn't be homeless people, but there shouldn't be rapists either. Yet there still are. What? What? Did you just compare homeless people to rapists? Is that what I just saw? Are you seriously in here comparing homeless people to rapists? Is that right? You want to double down on that, or you want to back off on that? Which one of those two do you think you think is the smarter position? You're seriously in here saying that homeless people and rapists have any there's any equivalence there whatsoever. Yeah, it's not even that veiled. Well, Miranda, what's really happened is I've started streaming on TikTok at the same time. So if you tune in on Tuesday, or on Mondays, if you tune in on Mondays, it's just going to be YouTube. Like, I don't do the TikTok stream on Mondays. And if I miss Monday's stream, because sometimes I work too much and I'm too tired, then I do it on Tuesdays. But Wednesday, Thursday is always a TikTok stream. And the TikTok stream is always a bit more wild. Because, yeah, we got TikTok kids in here. Like, we got people who aren't really grown up. Sometimes it's really obvious. And I don't really want to denigrate, like, teenagers, because we've had some teenagers in here who are, you know, really good, respectful kids who really care about what's going on. We had one kid in here last week, and he wanted to get involved and actually get connected more seriously, right? What am I trying to achieve exactly with all these streams, though? I'll tell you exactly what I've already achieved, right? People find me, and they talk to me, and then they get connected to organizations like socialistaction.com. You can find them in the description. And then they actually join a serious political organization that is actually attempting to move the needle, that actually shows up to protests, that actually shows up and does the legwork, that's connected to the unions, that's connected to the union movement, and is actually attempting to drive the discourse forward in a serious way. That's what I'm doing here, and I know I'm doing it because I've seen it happen. You hear about the alt-right pipeline? Well, welcome to the communist pipeline. Woo woo! This is the communist train to protest town, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So so you can have your dumb little ideas about what's going on in with your weird little emoji CIA bullshit. The rest of us are actually trying to build something serious. The rest of us are trying to act like adults, see that something's gone wrong in the world, and actually do something that really matters in the world. DVM says, back with all the COVID panic in 2020, our Serbian government had a plan to help every citizen and make themselves look better. Every adult citizen was given $100 worth of money. Oh, there you go. But Singer were given 1,000 because there were tough times. I don't really have an opinion, dude. I don't know what Singer means or any of that kind of stuff. I just don't know enough about the subject, bud. Like, that's the truth. And I don't want to pop off on a subject that I don't know anything about. Like really, like I don't really know who Tito is. Like, I don't really know who these guys are. Like, so I don't know the figures. I don't know the positions. I don't know the political arrangement. I don't know anything. Really, I don't know anything. Like, here's what I know. I know that Bill Clinton bombed Kosovo. That's what I know. And I'm against that. So whoever he was bombing, I'm probably aligned with, right? So that's more or less my opinion. And I don't want to pop off any deeper than that until I actually finally do the legwork and actually do the reading. And I'm just like, I'm too tired and I work too much. I'm too tired and I work too much. Too tired and I work too much. Have a good one, Miranda. Before I go, in Canada, 53.8% of children in foster care are Indigenous, but account for only 7.7% of the child population, according to Census 2021. All lives matter. That's an interesting statistic, eh? Did the residential school really end, or did they just transfer it to the government? Have a good one, Miranda. I hope you're doing beautifully out there. Yeah, you should research more about communist Yugoslavia and Tito. It's very well. If you're saying so, Comer, I suspect your opinion of it is wrong. Obviously, you've been just doing nothing but L's in the chat today. So, Joseph Bros Tito. Fun fact: Tito threatened Stalin with his murder if he sent any of his clowns to kill him again. Interesting. Yeah, again, I don't know anything about this situation, so it's like, okay, like. Singers, celebrities, all that, because they are rich, they needed more money. Oh, well, fuck them then. That sounds stupid. Yeah, the rich need more money because they're rich. This makes logical sense. Yeah, man. We're pretty dim as a people, right? Thoughts on Antifa? Yeah, fight the good fight. They got to get militant. They're fascists who are trying to kill people, for sure. And the people who are organizing under the Antifa banner understand that in a very literal, visceral sort of a way. And like when the police go around and start shooting houses up, when the Nazi groups start going around and kicking in doors and things, there should be a well-trained military organization that attempts to counter them, and that's Antifa. And yeah, good for them. I hope they do well. I hope they do strong. I hope they take over places. Like, I hope that they push the discourse, and I hope they purge their society of Nazis. I hope that happens. I hope that they literally purge their society of Nazis by any means necessary. Nazis should be purged by any means necessary. Send another senator. Yeah. Well, isn't that what happened here in April 2020? Yeah, the massive transfer of wealth. Yeah. Like, I love that, like, literally we experienced this enormous, massive transfer of wealth, and there are still people being like, capitalism's the best. Like, it's great. That was a question from TikTok. Okay. Like, I'm sure that some of the people who are commenting on TikTok are every time I glance over, it's always a mistake. Antifa are feminine man-children. So what if they are? Does that mean we should make fun of them and denigrate them? Weird position to take, dude. Huge L. Huge L. Like, this is why it's comments like this that really convince me the society is going to collapse. Because, like, so what if they are? Does that not mean they should be safe? Right? Yeah, I'll bet some of them are big Kyle Rittenhouse losers. Yeah, exactly. Communism is an L. Yeah, probably not, bro. Okay, I think I'm going to call it. I'm starting to get a bit of a headache. I want to eat some food. This is a good stream. This was fun. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.